Hey guys, welcome back to the channel. This is story about what if Naruto goes back in time when Minato was a young. Part 1. Before I start, please do support for more amazing content and comments for part 2. Do consider to subscribe my channel and share my video to your friends and check out the description as well. Let's start the video. 5 years old, I think you should be a ninja. Minato lifted up his head to look at his twin brother who sat on a branch higher than where he is and slightly frowns when he saw Makoto's signature bright grin. Why should I? Minato inquired, you don't even want to be one. And while Minato is trying hard to catch up to his hyperactive boisterous older twin brother, he's not willing to do something his brother doesn't take any part to. Not yet, at least. They always do things together, both of them. Minato mostly followed his brother's step, calmed by his laughs and warmed by his grins. But since that night when they both accidentally eavesdropped their parents' talk with a neighbor about a possible shinobi war coming, which somewhat developed to the talk of their kid's future, Makoto was not as cheerful as always. Minato didn't really understand what the adults were talking about. He knew they mentioned Minato and Makoto a few times and mentioned about ninja and shinobi and is very anxious to get caught, but Makoto, his brave bright older brother, seemed to understand as his blue eyes darkened and he clenched his fists. Minato assumed it may be because his twin doesn't want Minato or himself to be ninja. Then Makoto started to, failedly, persuaded Minato to be ninja ever since. Minato doesn't understand his twin at all. If it made him sad, why does Minato have to be ninja? And why does Makoto insist that he can't be a ninja? Makoto rolled his eyes, who said that I don't want to. I already told you I can't be one, dear cutest brother. There Makoto again and his usual reason Minato doesn't understand. Little Minato pouted to the nickname and Makoto laughed. Then I can't be one, too. Minato firmly said. Makoto sighed, but then he wore that smirk he usually uses when he's preparing a very devastating prank to those mean neighbors, and Minato is wary at it. We'll see, dearest Itato, we'll see. 5 years and 5 months old. The war did happen, and their parents parted away from the Namikaze twins. Makoto lingered more to their parents. Suddenly he showed how much of a spoiled, crybaby 5 years old he is, which made Minato raise an eyebrow. Minato believed in their parent. They will win the war and defeat the bad guys. They will come back to them. But seeing Makoto hugs their mother and father tightly with glassy eyes and whining with shaky, high-pitched voice which is so unlike Makoto, anxiety settled in his stomach. Makoto never cry. Sad maybe, chilling anger, silent frustration. But Minato never saw Makoto cry even once in his life. It made Minato wants to cry, too. Seeing their twins' glassy eyes, their mother cried too, and for one last time, she hugged them both tightly. Their father let out a strained smile and nodded before he, too, pulled them both in a bear hug. The twins watched their parents depart, waiting until their shadows disappeared on the horizon. Makoto turned away hesitantly after that, rubbing tears away from his sapphire eyes. Minato lingered longer, thinking about Ninja World, their parents, and then his own future. Does he want to be a shinobi? Yes, a voice back in his mind eagerly replied. But does he want to leave Makoto behind like how their parents leave them behind? Minato curled up his lips and turned away, catching up to his twin. 5 years and 8 months old. Their parents didn't come back. The Hokage made a monumental stone, and Anbu knocked on their door and delivered a letter for both of them. The Anbu nodded when Minato took the letter, quickly disappeared in swirling leaves. Makoto eyed the black envelope and he pulled out his hand, silently asking Minato to hand it to him. Minato did so, even though he's confused. Makoto doesn't want him to open the letter. But why? Yet Makoto's eyes look so grim and his expression is stone flat, it left no room to argue. Minato watched Makoto rip open the envelope and saw how his twin's eyes trailed the words on the pristine white paper. Makoto's grip on the letter tightened, the paper crumbles under his fingers, and soon, he ripped the letter to pieces. Minato widened his eyes in shock. But before he could ask, Makoto turned away and said, "We'll meet mom and dad," he quietly said, "Changed to suits in third closet." Suits in third closet. Black suits, custom made, only used on special occasion. That is to say, a funeral. Minato feels strangely numb. He followed his twins' footsteps to their room and they both changed in silent. Men and women in black clothes poured down the clearing, some sobbed, some looks devastated, and the twins made their way through the front of the crowd. His eyes scanned the name on monumental stones and Minato feels cold wind brushed his being. There are 2 Namikaze names on it. Their moms and dads. Minato couldn't fully register what the Hokage said. He didn't know when the clearing has become empty when it's clear not a minute ago it's crowded with black color. But he could feel Makoto's hand slowly gripped his fingers slowly curled up to his, and the next thing he knows, he's pulled to a tight hug by his older brother. Then it comes to Minato. His parents are gone. They will not come back. Soon he'll forget his mother's cookings, his father's laugh will gone, and their house will be very quiet. His mother wouldn't hum melodies as she tends to the garden, and his father would not let the men ruffle their hair. Because they are dead. And the twins are alone, now. Completely alone. They only have each other. Minato only have Makoto, and he's crying on his twin's shoulder, sobbing and shaking for a seemingly long time. He could also feel Makoto's shaking body in his arms and heard choked sobs in his ears. And for once, Minato is glad he's not the only crybaby this time. They will manage. They are alone, yes, but they will manage. 6 years old, they moved to orphanage. Makoto is reluctant to leave their parents' heritage, but the Hokage is right, it's not healthy for them to dwell in the past. Minato, as per usual, followed his brother and offer logical advices here and there. The younger is always the voice of reason between the two of them, after all. The older also has come back to his usual brash and bright self, much to Minato's joy and exasperation. Sometimes he wondered who's actually the older between the two of them. But with Makoto bragging about his cute, handsome, will be very awesome little brother, almost everyone in the orphanage, if not in the entire neighborhood, knew about the Namikaze twins, the older brash one and the younger calm one. Still, how Makoto acted sometimes made Minato thinks he is the older one. Like now, for example. How Makoto was hanging upside down on tree branch invited amused yet horrified looks on other kids, and Minato could only stare at his supposed Aniki with unreadable expression. Then Makoto pointed at the Hokage monument and solemnly said, "One day, your face will be carved on it. And by your face, that means my face too since, you know, we have same face and all." Minato stared. "And you will be the most awesomest ninja in the entire world, Ataudo. The world will know your name and remember your face. You'll plant fear simply by name. You will end this war. The key is to never give up. Ever. And always remember to look underneath the underneath." How Makoto could spew some wise and serious things while hanging upside down is Minato isn't sure how to react. Minato sighed. "You can't give exhortation while hanging upside down like that, Makoto." "Of course I can." He cheerfully said. "I am your older brother, I can do anything I want." The younger fight the urge to roll his eyes. "Only by 5 minutes." A pause, "Now get down here, Aniki, or I'll leave you behind." Makoto gawked, obviously exaggerating his surprised expression. "Who are you and what did you do to my cute handsome kind wise little brother? Are you the one who caused this dizziness too?" Just another day when Minato fought the urge to face palm or slam his head on nearby concrete. 8 years old. Sometimes, Minato envy his older brother. Then Makoto will leap from building to building, swing from one tree branch to others with impressive skill and flexibility, and suddenly, Minato envy his older brother very much. The first time Makoto leaped from one rooftop to another, Minato almost had a heart attack. Because he can't see his brother's body on building across where he stood right now, and he's afraid if his Aniki hurt himself and fell down the building, or hit his head or broke his bones or. Then said brother waved excitedly with his signature big goofy grin, and Minato exhaled in relief. Minato tried to talk his brother out of doing dangerous things like that from time to time, but Makoto never listened. In fact, he seemed to be more eager to jump here and there, be it to infuriate Minato or just to feel like flying. Because that's the reason why he did that. To feel like flying. To be free, he said. Minato tried once, a simple thing, really, leaping from one tree branch to another, but he has no agility or speed on par with his brother to execute it. If not for Makoto's strong hand who pulls him up, then Minato is sure he'll break his legs. It's annoying and sometimes frustrating because they are twin. Identical being. They always do things together. What Makoto can do then Minato can do too, and vice versa. It's the first time Minato can't do something that Makoto can, and bitterly, he accepts that fact. Minato has learned to simply follow where Makoto has gone on land, running and watching with awe on how his twin managed to roll around, leap, and twirl himself in the air while laughing. He looks so happy, and while Minato is sad that he can't follow Makoto on the same ground, as long as they don't get separated, then it's okay. Then they will end up in a clearing up Hokage Mountain, both sweaty and weary from jumping and running around the village. Makoto will grin, looking down at the village, and spread his hands widely. "We are free." Looking up to the bright blue sky above, how this moment is reserved for them alone, Minato thinks, yes, they are as free as they can be. 9 years old, I enrolled you to the academy. Minato looked up from his book, surprised, then seconds after his expression turned betrayed. "Relax, dear brother, I enrolled myself too." Makoto grinned as he picked up a book titled Basic Chakra Control Exercise and sat down in front of his twin. Minato looked a little relieved but still looked at his twin suspiciously. Makoto rolled his eyes. "You think I don't know you won't attend the academy without me?" Minato frowned, "But you said." "I changed my mind." Makoto cut. "Our parents said I can't be a ninja, you know." He slowly said, and Minato widened his eyes in slow realization. "I think they talked about my chakra reserve being too low for a ninja, but too much to be a civilian's too. It's something between civilians and low-rank ninjas." Makoto shrugged, "I don't know. But whatever. To hell with it. If I can't be a ninja then I can at least try to be one, right?" Minato smiled. I thought for a moment you weren't my older brother there, he calmly said. I don't remember my older twin could be so wise like this. And I don't remember my cute little brother being so sassy like this. Makoto made exaggerated, shocked yet horrified noises. But, you'll be surprised on what wise things I could spew, Minato. Like what? Like, do you know what goes first? The egg or chicken? The younger looked taken aback by the random question and his brother's grin. He can't answer, but apparently it's not a problem since Makoto continued. It's the chicken, since it can think. I think, therefore I am. Eggs couldn't think so they don't exist before the chicken. Minato looks dumbfounded, then concerned and confused. All those emotions flickered quickly on his face, and Makoto burst out laughing. 10 years old. Unsurprisingly, the Namikaze twins has become popular in the academy. The teachers adore the calm and smart Minato, while the students adore the friendly and bright Makoto. But no matter how irritated the teachers are by Makoto and his antics, the older of the two always manage to get high score. He's a genius like his younger twin, and the younger twin is actually as friendly as the older if you tried talking to him. But while Minato would excels on everything, Makoto will get very down on anything related to chakra. Nobody mocked him as dead last though, as they all encouraged by him and in return, they too encourage Makoto to continue. Oftentimes Makoto will bounce back up from every failures, but other times, Makoto will shrug, shows a strained smile and said, it's okay, it's not my thing anyway. Minato will get worried if that happens, but a taijutsu spar between the twin usually eases tension on Makoto. Because Makoto is a top-notch on taijutsu. Not even Uchiha Fugaku and his special Uchiha-style taijutsu could beat him on taijutsu class. In fact, no clan kids in their class could beat Makoto. Not that they can beat Minato either, but Makoto is on a whole another level. The only one who stood a chance against Makoto is Minato himself. Where Minato's taijutsu style is more to observe, evade, and strike on the right time using Academy's usual taijutsu style, Makoto's style, while familiar in observe and evade aspects, is very peculiar and unique. It's a style only he can use. Rather than fighting, Makoto always looks like he's dancing, he grins, laughs, light steps, flips in midair and other acrobatic moves only he could pull. It's full of surprise and more often than not, Minato found himself mirroring his twins' grins on their spar. Minato could tell how the students get quiet and awed every time this match happens, even the teacher is enjoying the show. Still, all those fame are still not enough to drove the bullies away. They really like to call Minato with girly name. Or simply called him girl. Or sissy. Actually, it's more often sissy. Because Minato's long hair, his calm and collected demeanor, his polite smile and his love on reading books actually made other boys think of him as girly. Minato ignored them most of the time, of course. They are just jealous to him and Makoto. And they can't bully Makoto if they don't want to get beaten up, so Minato is a really juicy target. It hurts sometimes and it's not like they do any real harm but, oh morons. Who the hell did you call sissy? My little brother is the handsomest, awesomest, kindest, cutest, bestest little brother in this world. And if anyone has any right to call him sissy then it's me. Me. Only me. You hear that, you punk? His brother. Minato covered his face with his book then and prayed to whatever god it is up there to just swallow him to earth. He seriously never asked for a twin in his life, but now he got one and yes, embarrassedly, irritatedly, Minato admits he does love his twin so much. 11 years old. In their second year, the twins got pretty much more attention from clan kids in their class, as the civilian kids mostly get eliminated last year. Unsurprisingly, Minato managed to form a circle of friendship formed by Shikaku Nara and Inoichi Yamanaka. And his twin, Makoto, is a fine definition of free, as there are no civilian kids fawning over him anymore. Sometimes he'll hang out with Tsumin Yazuka or Aburam Shibi. Sometimes he'll drag Minato so they could play with the Hyuga twins, Hiashi and Hisashi. What he meant by play is apparently to study Tenketsu and anatomy. All is pretty much good until his friends was on first seat to watch Makoto's mother-henning tendencies. It all started with something harmless enough, a simple discussion in the middle of afternoon, after class. Minato enjoyed his time with Shikaku and Inoichi when suddenly, Makoto dropped down from nearby tree and rolls to sit between them. Minato, far too used to his twin acrobatics, only smiled while his friend stared at the newcomer like he just grew another head. Like cute little brother. Makoto opened his hands, grinning widely, then proceeded to hug said cute little brother and patted his head, much to Minato's annoyance. Makoto glanced at Shikaku and Inoichi then both surprised by calculating blue eyes on his face. But then the serious atmosphere broke once again as Makoto showed his signature goofy grin. I see you've made some best friends, Minato. Best friends? Perhaps, a pause, what of it? Oh nothing. Makoto said in a sing-song voice, hands waving in dismissal. But then he narrowed his eyes, I just want to tell them if they leave you alone, then I'll hunt them down and kill them with my own hands. What? Take care of my cute little brother here or I'll murder you and hang your corpses on Hokage Mountain myself. Silence. That's all. Makoto laughed then, breaking the ice like it's never there, then stood up and patted dirt out of his pants. What do you want for dinner, Minato? Minato was immediately distracted from his previous thoughts, blanched at the thought of Makoto cooking, using orphanage's kitchen, and caused chaos like that one time he tried to make a simple omelette. No. He firmly said. You are not going to get close to any kitchen. You do like my cooking, cute brother. And that's it, Minato ever so calm. Namikaze lose his cool, they aren't even edible. He screeched, Makoto I swear to God. Said blonde disappeared with sound of maniac cackles, and while Minato face-palmed, Shikaku and Inoichi looked at Minato with amused expressions. But then Inoichi said, do you know how weird it is to see your face threatening people with cold glare, then grinning and cackling like a maniac a second after, Minato? Minato stared at the silver blonde. Never mind, then. 12 years old. It's the last year of academy and there's a new student in the class. Minato knew she's new because he remembered all children from second year, and even when many got eliminated, he's sure he never saw a kid with that bright red hair in academy before. Not in the entire village, even. Her fiery red hair sways naturally in the air, and she has an equally fiery glint in her violet bluish eyes. Her expression might be too fierce on her chubby face, but for Minato, it only makes her different from other girls. She might look like a sore thumb here with her somewhat regal and outstanding features, and if he's not mistaken red hair is common from a regal ally clan of Konoha, isn't it? What's the name of the clan again? Yuzu. The kids are starting to introduce themselves again as the start of the year, plus saying what will their dreams will be. My name is Kushina Uzumaki. And I will be the first female Hokage ever. His blue eyes looked around and majority of the kids has began snickering, either it's because her ridiculous, for them, red hair, or her, not, stupid dream. Minato met Makoto's eyes, who is currently sitting leisurely in the left corner behind him, mirroring Shikaku Nara beside him. He looks bored out of his mind, but he has this calculating glint in his eyes when he looks at, huffing, growling, angry Kushina. Noticing Minato's stare however, he grinned goofily and waved to his twin. The introductions continue, and Minato could only smile to his twin before he, too, stood up and smiled to the class. My name is Minato Namikaze. My dream is to be strong enough to protect people I love. The class has began staring, while most of the clan kids seems to be looking at Minato with a new angle again. Minato understands if majority of the class doesn't understand his dreams, except the clan kids. Not everyone has a twin brother like Makoto who's willing to discuss philosophy with him or abruptly said something about strength and morals while playing with bubbles. He calmly sat down then, ignoring Kushina Uzumaki's indignant huff. Even if he pretty much remember kids in this class, Minato still pay close attention to their introduction, just for being polite. Then it's his twin's turn and Minato perks up to what will his older twin say this year. To use the first year introduction to promote his cute little brother him, Minato fought the urge to hide under the desk then and charm the entire class with his grin and easygoing attitude. Last year was pretty much normal, to Minato's relieved sigh. But this year? Minato isn't sure. Makoto stood up with his signature goofy grin and began. Hi guys. I'm the older twin of my cute, smart, awesome, will-be Hokage. There are snickers, good-natured, mostly, around. Minato's smile becomes strained as almost everyone in the class glanced at him, and again, he fought the urge to slam his head on the table. Minato Namikaze there, my name is Makoto Namikaze. My dream is to help my brother reach his dream and lead a happy life. And just like that, the invisible tension of starting a new year and war on the horizon disappeared as the kid snicker and smile to see Makoto's antics, spreading his hands outwards happily as if he was done drawing an imaginary rainbow above his head. His older twin always has a charm like that and Minato sighed with a smile when the teacher began their first lesson of the year. They are walking out of the class when they heard the commotion. Makoto and Minato shared a look, then quickly walked out of the class to see what was happening. Minato's sapphire-colored eyes could only widen in surprise when all he could see are red hair flowing wildly in the air, screams and yells of pain, and many bodies of male academy kids littered around one angry Kushina Uzumaki. From the edge of his vision, he could see Makoto also widen his eyes, surprised. The demon. One of the freaked boys screeched. The red-blooded habanero. His friend was nodding frantically. Then Kushina turned her head to the screeching, very much alive boys, and they screeched more before they ran away, screaming, red blood habanero. Get away from her. Minato could feel sweat trickle down his face when Kushina turned to face the twins instead. How did she manage to make her hair flow on all direction like that? And that shining red eyes with black blank face. Is this an ninjutsu or genjutsu reserved only for women or? Makoto stared cautiously at her but made no move at all. Minato knew that his older twin is as nervous as him, facing the angry Uzumaki, though he does hide it better. Then Kushina sidestepped all the bodies littered around her slowly, easily, as she make her way to the twins. Minato quietly swallowed. Right in front of the twins, Kushina exhaled an irritating breath and suddenly, both Namikazes could see her scowling face, her hair flowed down naturally, and her posture defensive. Minato blinked again and again, trying to confirm his vision. "What?" she shouted in front of them, "You want to tell the world how ugly my hair is, or call me names too? Go on." The red hair challenged while cracked her knuckles and scowled menacingly, but Minato could only smile, his ultimate shiny smile, when he doesn't know what to do or say. Makoto broke out of his stupor then, raised an eyebrow, and suddenly Minato has this urge to shut his twin mouth before it's too late. Minato's curiosity won, as he did nothing when Makoto opened his mouth. "Are you okay?" he asked a Uzumaki casually, too casually, "Your face looks like constipated tomato, you know." And as Kushina's expression changed from shock to enraged, then her face turned black blank with red glowing eyes and red hair flowing freely like wild tentacles, Minato seriously regret his choice to ignore his urge earlier. Right then Makoto decided to run away and jumped up to nearby tree, then leaped out from Academy's gates wall straight up to a nearby roof like a nimble cat, and Kushina followed, hot in his tail. Minato stared. To the scorched black trail where Kushina's feet ran, to the place where they both disappear. And he closed his eyes when he heard faint yelling and more commotion in the direction where they both disappeared. Really, he doesn't want to know. Hurriedly, Minato walked to the orphanage. "That woman is crazy." Minato looked up from the book in his hand to see his older twin with his messed up glory enter the room through the window. "She chased me even after I jumped up the roof. And trying to jump up too." Then Makoto slumped to a chair in front of him, trying to ease his ragged breathing. The younger shook his head. "I wonder why." He flatly said. "What?" Makoto asked defensively, glanced at his twin, "She does look like constipated tomato," admitted Minato. Minato sighed and wondered if his twin could stop being so true to his name, being so painfully honest, as Makoto means honesty and understands social value. But, Minato mused, he does understand. Makoto never called anyone names like that. He never called Chaozu fat or Amain scrawny or Shikaku lazy, even if they are all true. So why now? Why Kushina? Minato remembered his twin's calculating gaze earlier this morning as he looked at the Uzumaki and can't help but stare at his twin in front of him. Why? He blurted out, confused. Makoto stared back at Minato. Why what? He doesn't want to answer, Minato realized. They understand each other perfectly, completely in sync, and Makoto understand the weight of Minato's why. Even without Minato explain. Why Kushina, why now, why did you do that? But Makoto asking back meant he pretended to not understand or he doesn't want to answer. And Minato frowned. Her red hair is beautiful. He softly muttered. She is beautiful, Minato inwardly thinks, and by those glint in Makoto's eyes, Minato knew Makoto understand that. They are twins, after all. But Makoto snorted. She will be more beautiful without that scowl. Minato silently admits, that is true. But that doesn't justify Makoto's offensive words earlier and, as Minato carefully observed his twin, he feels like he couldn't understand him. Makoto picked up a book from a pile Minato has read and quietly began reading, too. As his eyes trailed back to words in the book in his hands, Minato shrugged off uneasy feelings in his heart. Since then, Makoto is eager to pull Minato out of Kushina Uzumaki's way to hide with him. Minato doesn't understand why, because he has absolutely no problem with Kushina. So far they've been hiding to bushes, little gaps between buildings, up the trees, and behind boxes. Makoto somehow developed an instinct to know if Kushina is within 20 meters radius or something, to Minato's surprise and confused awe. It has been 2 weeks since then, and Minato pretty much feels safe enough to walk around alone. Then he saw Kushina with her red-blooded habanero hair ran to him with an impossible speed and thinks that maybe his older twin is right on bringing him to hide with him after all. Frozen on his feet, Minato dodged a first punch Kushina launched with a sluggish side step. Wait, but Kushina doesn't listen as she furiously throw another punch, and when Minato sidestepped it again, Kushina throw barrages of punches and kicks, Minato narrowly dodges. Then Minato jumped away and raised his hands in surrender. Fortunately, Kushina doesn't jump to follow him and stared menacingly instead. Please. He winced, this is a misunderstand. Somehow that only fueled Kushina more as she jumped forward and throws attacks more ferocious than before. In other situation, he would have praised Kushina's stamina, but this is a life or death condition for Minato, and it's getting really hard with him refusing to attack Kushina. Minato staggered back and he's sure the next punch will connect with his jaw as he's too late to raise his hand for defense, but to his surprise, it never connect. A yellow blur has jumped right between them, pushing Minato back. Minato blinked and he saw his twin holding Kushina's fist in his hand, scowling to the redhead. What the hell, woman? he yelled, and when Minato blinked, it suddenly the usual Kushina scowling while flickering her eyes between the twins, with hints of confusion in her violet blue eyes. You have a problem with me, then fine. Makoto pushed her fist back until Kushina staggers, still scowling in anger to the older twin. But do not, I warn you this time, do not touch my little brother. Kushina gritted her teeth before she jumped forward to beat Makoto. Don't. Minato's warning came too late as Makoto easily sidestepped the redhead and swooped her feet in a quick graceful move. Minato grimaced when Kushina's back hits the dirt with a loud thud, her violet bluish eyes widened to Makoto's fist very closely in front of her face. Minato clicked his mouth shut when he saw the cold expression on his twin's eyes. He couldn't do anything if Makoto is on that mood. He only showed that expression to the annoying bullies, and while Minato very much thinks this is highly unnecessary for Kushina, Makoto wouldn't listen to him, not right now. Then Makoto huffed, stood up and walked away from them. Leaving Kushina to stare at the blue sky with wide eyes, and Minato is torn to follow his twin or console the redhead. Minato decided the latter and awkwardly shuffled his way to her. Are you okay, Uzumaki-san? Minato hesitantly asked as he looked down on Kushina's face. Kushina blinked and Minato narrowly avoided their head clash together as Kushina quickly got up while scowling and turned away. Uzumaki-san? What? Her tone is high-pitched and when she turned around, Minato widened his eyes to her glassy violet eyes. But before Minato could say anything, Kushina turned away again and ran away. Minato doesn't know what motivated him exactly, but he quickly jumped up and followed her. Uzumaki-san. Wait, leave me alone. She yelled. Her tone is shaky and Minato could only fasten his pace to catch up with her because man, she is very fast. Fortunately, she stopped at last, in the middle of Cherry Blossom Pillar Road. She turned around and glared at Minato who is standing on a branch on one of the cherry blossom tree acres from her. What do you want, sissy? She yelled, furious, but made no move to bring Minato down. Minato straightened his back unconsciously, defensive, but ignored her insult. He doesn't mean like that. He began, with the most calming and soothing voice he could muster, Makoto always do something with reason. He doesn't mean bad, I swear. Kushina looks torn but mostly still angry and clearly doesn't believe Minato's words. Is that all? Minato blinked. No, he said, please forgive him, Uzumaki-san. When Kushina looked even more furious Minato quickly cut, you have beautiful hair. He said, Makoto also thinks so. Kushina's violet bluish eyes widened in surprise, but then she scowled again and turned away, running away as fast as she can. Minato, too surprised to catch up with her, could only watch as her figure disappear slowly. The younger Namikaze sighed and began to make his way back to the orphanage. Hopefully, Kushina will grow less and less hostile through time. Kushina did grow more and more hostile, but she ignored the twins most of the time. Makoto also ignored her, much to Minato's exasperation. But it's still better than to hide every time they saw strands of red long hair, so Minato wouldn't complain much to his twin. The Genin exam is coming and even if Minato is sure he will pass with flying colors, he can't underestimate the exam and thus throw himself in intensive study. Makoto snorted but follows him study anyway. Then the exam day come and true to his prediction, Minato did pass with flying colors. His grins is very identical with his twin's he shows his hit I-8 in front of Makoto. The older grins back, nods in satisfaction, then patted Minato's head. But Makoto's grin is not as bright as always and Minato frowned softly. Makoto? What about your exam? Where is your hit I-8? What happened? Are you alright? As always, Makoto understand the unspoken questions just by the tone of Minato's word and he shrugged as an answer. I failed, my dearest brother. Makoto softly said, still patting Minato's head, which Minato realized, for Makoto's own comfort than his own, the ninjutsu test is right before the taijutsu one, and I stupidly drained my chakra on Henge and one bunshin. I can't do kawarimi, and my taijutsu later is predictably a mess. The older shook his head and showed a strained smile. Minato must have shown a very sad expression for Makoto's expression softens, I told you, right? I can't be a ninja. The younger looks torn. Again, Minato is not yet ready to do something Makoto doesn't take part into. And being a ninja without his brother is Minato suddenly could see their parents left them that day, disappearing to the horizon and never returned forever. He wondered if he should do the same as he looks at the hit I-8 in his hand. Minato doesn't want that. He would never leave Makoto alone like that. They only have each other now. Makoto sensed his brother's discomfort and sadness, he must be, as he took the hit I-8 from Minato's hand and slowly tied it on Minato's forehead. There. My cute little brother finally take his first step to become the greatest ninja in this era. Just for this time, Minato doesn't like how Makoto's grins effortlessly lifted up all his doubts and worry. Makoto is grinning to comfort him when he himself needs comfort. That is so unfair. Minato moved to hug his older brother and fortunately, the older complied. Did Makoto enter the academy with complete understanding of his failure? Did he stay beside Minato all this time fully knowing he will fail at last? Did Makoto put up with Minato so he could reach his dreams as Makoto knew how much Minato wants to be a ninja? Thank you, Ani-san. He whispered, because again, Minato realized his older twin is amazing and no matter how embarrassing he is, and Minato still loves Makoto so much. Soon after, they moved back to their house as Minato is now considered legal enough to own a property alone. While Minato spent the first week of him being a genin to adapt, Makoto spent his time on cleaning the house. Minato sometimes help, but with training and D-rank missions here and there, Minato could only help so much. His payments from missions are barely enough for both of them to eat, but their parents' wealth is still there, and they both used it wisely to their need. On the second week though, Makoto suddenly declared, "I want to see your jounin teacher." Minato blinked as he chewed his bread and swallowed, "Sure," he said as he ignored the wary feeling inside his head. True to his word, Makoto followed Minato on their meeting point at Bridge to Training Ground 7. His two teammates seems to be shocked, if not surprised, to see Makoto, a complete copy of himself. Especially now, with his stoic and borderline calm expression, everyone will have a hard time differentiating him and his twin, if not for the hit I-8 Minato is using. They stopped in front Minato's teammates, Minato smiled to them and Makoto just nodded. Not a minute later, Jiraiya appeared in a puff of smoke between them. "Good morning, lads." The white-haired man greeted. "Morning, sensei." They politely chorused. Then he looked at Makoto, then Minato, back to Makoto and Minato again. Jiraiya-sensei raised an eyebrow. "And this is?" Minato quickly stepped up, "This is my older twin brother, Makoto Namikaze." "Makoto, this is Jiraiya-sensei, my jounin instructor." "Sorry for the surprise, sensei, my brother said he wants to meet you." And he continued introducing his teammates with his older brother, too. Makoto has this calculating look in his eyes again, but it disappeared in a few seconds. By Jiraiya's faint frown, he must have seen it too. Then Makoto grinned his signature grin and to everyone's surprise, jumped on the railing beside Jiraiya. "I trust my little brother to you, Hiro-sanin." His teammates was choked by the nickname, but Minato could only widen his eyes in surprise. Makoto rarely used that kind of cold tone before to strangers. Jiraiya looks baffled that Minato always want to pat his sensei's back for facing his older brother's antics like this, but Makoto is not finished. He narrowed his blue eyes and leaned to the adult's face, pointing menacingly, "If I ever see him enter the hospital, then I'll hunt you down, skin your genital and cut it down to pieces. Do you understand me?" Apparently satisfied by Jiraiya-sensei's pale face, Makoto leaned away then, his face broke to a wide grin, and he jumped down and pats Minato's head. He waved to Minato's still frozen teammates, "And please be nice to my little brother here. Help him in any way, don't leave him alone, don't betray his trust." A pause, as his voice dropped and his eyes narrows again, this time exclusively to his teammates, "Or I'll kill you and hang your corpses to feed the crows." Minato goes slack-jawed, he can't even respond to his brother messing up with his hair. "I'm Minato. Be nice, alright." And with maniac laughs, he ran away, jumped up to a tree and leaped to a nearby roof with grace of a cat. Seeing his teammates' terrified yet shocked expression and Jiraiya's baffled face, Minato regrets not listening to his wary instinct earlier. But, slowly, Minato asked his sensei, "Why did he call you Sanin, sensei?" "Hell if I know, kid." Yeah, he should have listened to his instinct earlier. They are going to do their first C-rank mission tomorrow, and Makoto took a little time from his part-time job to eat with Minato and Jiraiya. Makoto has convinced the worried Minato that yes, he is fine and being home alone is very boring, that they need more income, and so Minato reluctantly let his brother do whatever part-time job he got. From delivering letters and newspapers around the village to help in Dango shop and even part-time waiter in a barback shop. It's a good thing that Makoto can easily charm anyone he wants, to Minato's relief. Jiraiya seemed to be okay with Makoto after his threat the first time they met and goes along with them. The time for them together has become somewhat rare and Minato is really happy that Makoto and Jiraiya are both here with him. They finished their ramen and now just sitting down a tree's shadow, the tree of them eating blue popsicles, the twins staring at the sky and Jiraiya is studying a scroll. "Say, Minato, why do you want to be a ninja?" Minato glanced to his twin, raised an eyebrow as he's sure Makoto already knew why. Then he looked back at the sky and answered anyway, "I want to be strong to protect people I love." Makoto seems pleased as he smiled and nodded, "And how would you do that?" The younger frowns. Why is Makoto asking him this? And Minato is at loss for words to the question. How would he protect? By defeating your enemy, perhaps. Bad people? Makoto asked. Minato blinked, frowning more deeply and reluctantly nodded. But there are no bad people in this world. He softly murmured, remembering his philosophy debates with Makoto on Saturday nights before they slept. That's right. Makoto replied, barely a soft murmur himself, there's no bad people in this world. Enemy, yes, bad people, no. But enemy is also temporary, my dear brother. Minato turned his head to face his brother and he saw the older's grin before he looked up to the sky again. The glint in his sapphire eyes are so solemn yet serene, and Minato looked up to the sky to look for something which caused his brother's eyes turn like that, but find nothing except cotton candy cloud. Because we are all human, dearest brother. Humans gifted with power called chakra, power which made them selfish and leads to hatred here and there everywhere, even. Humans' talents, those using something that was spread for good to war and bloodshed for personal use. A pause, you must remember what is your enemy, what is your purpose to fight, and look underneath the underneath. Minato looked to his brother beside him, to his wistful smile and his golden hair flowing in the air. He feels so comfortable just sitting beside his brother, their shoulder brushing with each other's, the air whistling a peaceful melody. They are together and Minato is content with that. But in their mission, Minato will be alone. He has Jiraiya-sensei and his teammates, of course, but he will not feel this peaceful, this calm with them. And somehow, that made him anxious. Makoto chuckled then, like how he always understand Minato in silence, and pats Minato's head good-naturedly. You'll be fine, dear brother, I'm sure you will. You are my younger brother, after all. The one who will be very, very awesome. Minato believes Makoto's words, believes his cheerful tone which calmed him, and smiled. Yes, he will be fine. Little did the twins know that Jiraiya on the other side of the tree has stopped reading the scroll in his hand. His mind wandered to the toads, to Mount Myaboku, and to a certain prophecy. Of his student who will change the world, of the golden twins, of how one of the twins will be the master puppet of the world, of how his words and action will affect the world. One of the golden twin, the old toad said, holds the key to the world. He has read the fate of this world. The spun strings of change or to let go, it's all in his hands. The prosper or to ruin, it's all in his words. When he saw Makoto and Minato that day, he's shocked to see the golden twin in front of his eyes. He didn't show it, even in front of Makoto's calculating gaze and his threats. He's too shocked to see the prophecy walking in front of him. But listening to the older of golden-haired twins speaks about the world and hatred, Jiraiya feels his blood runs cold. Looking at the twins leaning on each other, little by little, it's hard to see the brats as 12-year-old twin kids anymore. He saw the savior of the world and the fate holder in their shadows, and unconsciously, he gripped a scroll in his hand tighter than before. Minato dragged his feet home, opening his house's door slowly. Oh? He heard, when he looked up he saw his twin with a thick book on his lap, sitting on the living room sofa, a mug of tea on the desk. Makoto's smile morphed to a frown when he saw Minato. The younger doesn't understand why, but he has a good guess. Probably because his, too, strained smile. Minato may be able to hide with his calm smile to the world, but not to his twin. Makoto gently said, welcome back, Aotaudo. Minato blinked and nodded. He wants to go to his room and just sleep for the day, but his feet made its way to his twin and he sat down slowly beside him. Makoto's expression softened, then he put down his book and gently pulled the younger Namikaze in a hug. But Minato still felt impossibly numb, as if he was finally pulled out of the depth of water. He could feel his twin's warmth creep slowly on his skin. He closed his eyes, and all he could see is blood on his hands, stained his white sleeves and kunai, and a cold corpse of the bandit staring accusingly at him. Unseeing, chilling red-stained eyes judging him. Killer, it seemed to say, what a cruel kid you are. Minato shuddered. He doesn't mean to, never mean to kill him. I didn't mean to. He shakily said to his twin's shoulder, but I did anyway. Oh brother, Minato heard Makoto murmurs, with a soft yet painful tone he rarely used, this is why I don't want you to be a ninja. That kind of expression never fit your handsome face. His lips twitched upwards at Makoto's attempt at joking. That is the way of this world, brother dearest, Makoto begins, and Minato can feel his brother's hands pats his back and ruffles his hair in a comforting manner, that is the way of ninja. Now tell me, did he try to harm anyone? Minato hums, reluctantly remembering the mission again, he did. A pause, he tried to kill Nahara. Then it's a right thing to do. Makoto firmly replies, he would have killed one of you, or God forbid, you, so retaliation is on the line. A pause, it's not your fault, not his, not anyone's. It's just the way this world works, brother. Makoto is rarely a logical one between the both of them, but when he does, he's always right. Like right now. Minato knows his twin's words hold true, and with grim acceptance, he lets his shoulder drop and lets go the images of corpse and blood, push them to the back of his mind, as a reminder. You are home with me now, that's what important. Makoto whispers, and Minato nods, exhaled a shaky, long breath to calm himself. They are home. There's a war on horizon but they are home. Together, they will be fine. There's a loud thud sound from in front of him, and Minato looks up to see a big dusty book in front of him. He raises an eyebrow to his twin's smug smirk in front of him. This is the Book of Fuinjutsu, released by the prestigious Uzumaki clan. Minato frowns. Makoto sounds so smug and proud, and Minato doesn't understand why. Fuinjutsu. Sealing. Minato stares confusedly at the book, then to his brother, why? My brother. Makoto said, with that artificial high-pitched tone which he copies from a soap opera, always makes Minato wants to roll his eyes, complete with the shakes of his head. Art of sealing could be described as foundation of life. You can do anything, and I repeat, anything, with seals. The younger blinks. Now that sounds very interesting, indeed. But and pray tell, dear brother, where did you get this book? Makoto must notices that his theatrical has rubbed off on Minato as he grins, a granny who owns a barbecue shop give it to me. She said it's from her long-time friend and she figured I would enjoy it. And? His older brother's face lit like fireworks, I did. It's so fun. You have to read it. Fuinjutsu is like puzzles. There are pieces of the puzzles and we can combine it to make nearly everything, brother. There are so many chances and combinations on its elements. Like, seriously. The combinations itself are nearly definite. We have to study Fuinjutsu together, Minato. We could be the best seal masters in this village. Seeing his brother's excited face and his ramblings on elements of Fuinjutsu written on the book, Minato wonders, how could other kids not see how much of a nerd Makoto is? He is a social butterfly, even more so than Minato, yes, but that doesn't mean Minato is the only nerd one between them. But nearly everyone except Shikaku believes that Makoto could not sit down still reading for more than 1 hour. If only they knew. Alright, Makoto, breath. And Makoto does so, as he inhales a long breath to stop his ramblings, then smiles brightly to his twin. Minato shakes his head, but he's smiling, fine, then. Where do we start? Makoto's grins turns mischievous, and Minato frowns suspiciously. First, brother dearest, of course, we'll begin with calligraphy. Minato shrugs. Calligraphy doesn't look that hard. And they will learn it together, anyway. It shouldn't be that frustrating, right? Using their parents' wealth, the twins purchased a pair of brushes, unholy amount of papers on many sizes, ink, and other things needed to practice calligraphy. That including books on basic calligraphy and basic sealing, very limited sources on Fuinjutsu they could find in the village. They both read the books first, and being used to read since 5 years old, the books easily finished in 4 hours or so. It's weekend, Sunday precisely, and afternoon when they begin pouring ink and practice the real thing. First tries are always a mess, but then, about half an hour later, Makoto makes calligraphy looks like a cakewalk, and for Minato, that is very misleading. Done with writing his name in calligraphy, Makoto takes a chakra paper which only used to make explosive seals or something like that, and Minato stops his brush to stare. What are you? But Makoto looks like he doesn't listen, as he opens a basic sealing for ninja book and opens the page which shows a design of silent smoke bomb seal. Minato suddenly feels his blood runs cold. He has a good guess of what is his brother doing. But he's also curious, so he lets his brother copy the design on the chakra paper in his hand. Try this. Makoto says, as he hands the seal to Minato. The younger frowns, but reluctantly nods, and he ties the paper to a wooden shuriken. Minato flows his chakra to the paper and quickly throws the shuriken to their backyard garden. The shuriken hits the dirt and with a low boom it explodes. Minato winces to see a little crater, and Makoto adopts a thoughtful look before he takes another chakra paper and begin copying the seal again. Makoto, I don't think. But Makoto seriously doesn't listen, as his hand swiftly creates characters and symbols on the paper. Minato could only sigh as he takes the newly made seal and ties it to another wooden shuriken. He lets his chakra flow to the paper and throws it again to their backyard. The explosion has receded and there are smoke around, but there's still a little crater where the shuriken hits. His blue eyes could only widens in surprise, but Makoto hums before he takes another chakra paper and swiftly crafts another seal. This time, Minato is fully curious as he ties the seal on wooden shuriken. Again, he lets his chakra flow to the paper and he throws it again to their backyard. And surprise, there's a soft shushing noises before black smoke covers their backyard completely. Makoto's seal is a complete success. On third try. And that book said it needs at least 3 months or even 1 year to make that basic seal, as calligraphy is a hard art. Minato goes slack-jawed while Makoto looks at the smoke with his smug smile. Quickly broke out of his stupor, Minato snatch a chakra paper and begin to copy the seal design on the book. But before he could try it, Makoto snatch his seal away and stares at his work. It's messy, Minato. Makoto points to the character on the corner right. You write it too far to the left a few inches. His finger moves to the far left. This one is above the required place and your strokes are too bold. You see, this on this part should be more air-lithe, I think, than the stroke on this one. Also there are splotches of ink around the characters. It's messy. This won't work. This would probably explode like my first try. A pause, Makoto frowns, but even that was not this messy. This might be dangerous. Burn this one. Your calligraphy is a mess, brother. Don't try any seal until you could write your name properly, alright. Minato could only gawk at his twin, who is humming thoughtfully and pats his head like a puppy. His twin is hella genius on calligraphy and sealing too, probably. Also, he pauses to frown in distaste, we may need to ask Kushina for help. Her clan is very proficient on sealing, after all. She'll probably pummel me if she sees me so, I'm counting on you, Atato. How are you so good with this? Minato blurts out, incredulous. Then Makoto grins and shrugs, who knows, brother. Probably because I've studied this before, in my previous life. Then he laughs so loud like it's a very funny joke, and Minato could only stare. Just his twin and his antics. As per Makoto's request, the next Saturday, Minato goes looking for Kushina to get her help on sealing, but to his surprise, he can't find the redhead anywhere. He's sure he already runs around the village at least once, and it is impossible to not see Kushina's bright hair. He already visited her house too, and her caretaker said she went out this morning. This doesn't sound right. Something in the back of his mind tells him that this is wrong. Whatever this is. The blonde decided to comb the forest outside the village's border, just to satisfy his curiosity. Imagine his surprise when he sees strands of red long hair on the dirt. Minato looks around more and finds more strands of red hair on the bushes, branches of tree and forward, leading outside a village. This is a trail left by Kushina, Minato is sure of that. But why? Darling brother, what are you doing? His brother's voice breaks him out of his thoughts, and Minato nearly slips his foot on the branch where he's standing. He turns his head to see Makoto grins, before he swiftly jumps to a branch closest to him, then another, until he's standing right beside Minato. Makoto blinks, his blue eyes slowly widens to see strands of red hair in Minato's hands. The twins shares a look, understanding dawned on both of them, of how Makoto will not be able to follow Minato without chakra-enhanced jumps, how this might be disastrous, and how Kushina might be in terrible danger. Oh. Makoto says, and Minato leaps away, leaving his brother behind. He follows trail of red hairs, but does not pick them, as he's sure Makoto follows the trail too, only more slower than him. Minato jumps down and hides between bushes, he stalks the enemies from afar. There are 3 adults, 2 in front of Kushina and 1 behind her. They are walking around the forest and haven't noticed Minato yet. Minato silently follows them, simply waiting and observing, the rear one's holding a ninjato, and the 2 others seems usual. From their hit I-8, it's from Kumagakure. He could see Kushina plucks out her hair and drops them every so often, and unconsciously smiles as he mentally praised the girl's courage and cleverness. The blonde hears a soft rustle, yet their enemy Nins hasn't realized, and soon enough, his twin silently jumps down from a tree and squats beside him. He looks ragged and tired but still grinning like crazy. Makoto pulls out few papers from his pants pocket, and when Minato looks at them, they are seals. Silently, Makoto pulls out his hand and Minato hands him few kunais. With quick moves he ties the seals to the kunais, hands them back to Minato, and jumps up to a nearby tree. A pincher attack, then, Minato mused. Fine. Minato throws 2 kunais at the same time, one between the 2 in the front and one straight to the ninjato-wielding nin's head. The first kunai exploded with yellow, bright flash and black smoke, while the second one simply explodes with purple smoke which quickly fills the road. Minato jumps to the smoke and snatch one Kushina Uzumaki in bridal style, then leaps up to a tree. Kushina widens his eyes to Minato, who is smiling and looking down at her, from the top of the forest. You leave a very clear trail, Minato says, and his smile widens, like I said, you have beautiful hair. The Uzumaki looks awestruck, but before she could say anything, Minato hears clanking metals and looks down to his twin standing tall in the middle of littered bodies. Makoto's cold, empty gaze sends shivers down Minato's spine. He looks to the corpses, he finds one with twisted head, one with stab hole in the chest and twisted hand, and one with lacerated feet, the only survivor looking up at Makoto with fearful teary eyes. Minato jumps down beside his older brother and he notices a bloodied ninjato in Makoto's hand. Minato hears Kushina softly gulps and he feels her turns her head away on his shoulder. His smile is strained when Minato says, let's go back to Konoha. I'll inform my sensei to bring back the survivor. Makoto drops the ninjato and when he turns around, his smile is so off it makes Minato wants to cry. His bright brave twin never shows a broken smile like that before. He's hurting so much, Minato knows. And it's not because of little cut wounds all over his hands and feet, not because his swollen ankle, it's something else. Something he cannot see. It's very worrying. Kushina-san needs a proper care, brother, go first. Minato wants to argue, but Makoto cuts again, I'll make sure he doesn't escape. The younger Namikaze holds the urge to bit back, he can't escape. Because those cut wounds and how he bleeds profusely he's in agony he can't escape. But one look from Makoto is enough for him to comply. There are whimpers from said man, and grimly, Minato nods and quickly makes his way to Konoha, with Kushina calmly in his hands. Stop being a mother hen, Minato, that's my job. Minato rolls his eyes to Makoto's irritated expression. He sits down on a chair beside Makoto's white bed and with unimpressed look he says, "Someone gave me an exhortation to always be careful and considerate in battle." Makoto closes his eyes and Minato continues, "And that someone actually got himself a twisted ankle and cut wounds everywhere. How could I not worry, my dear brother?" When Makoto opens his eyes again, it's to frown to Minato. "It's not like I could not walk," Makoto whines, then shakes his head, "They are exaggerating. Your sensei is exaggerating. And I am older than you. Older brothers are strong so they will not cause their little bros worry. And I am strong." Minato remembers how Jiraiya-sensei seems shocked when Minato explains what happened and quickly jumps out to take both the survivor and Makoto in his hands. Both go the hospital. Minato doesn't know if Jiraiya-sensei is also care so much for his brother. "You're my older brother only by 5 minutes," Minato says with fond exasperation. Makoto opens his mouth to retort or to crack a joke, but then the room's door opens and one Uzumaki Kushina slowly enters. She walks to Makoto's bed, stops right beside Minato, and when they start a staring contest, Minato could feel sweat trickling down his head. Then the Uzumaki break her gaze and mumbles, "I apologize. And thank you." Minato is sure that was loud enough for anyone in this room here, but Makoto still asks, "What was that?" Kushina grits her teeth, "I am sorry. And thank you." To Minato's fear, Makoto picks his ear and with his most nonchalant tone he could use he says, "I'm sorry, I think I hurt my ears a little, could you repeat that please?" "I said I'm sorry. And thank you for saving me." Kushina yells and Minato winces, both because of the volume and because that fierce scowl on her face. "Happy now, you disgusting brother complex." Makoto's smug smile quickly turned to shock by that nickname, and even laying on bed is not enough to stop Makoto from being fierce. "I dare you to repeat that, you constipated tomato." "Disgusting bro, calm. Rotten tomato. Could you guys please?" "Now brother, shut up." "Minato, shut up." And as they continue throwing nicknames both insulting and stupid, "You ugly goat." "Crippled monkey." At the same time, Minato could only sigh as he imagines their upcoming sealing study. It will be fun. Much fun. So much joy it makes Minato wants to massage his head for his ever-growing headache. Makoto. Minato tries to rub his sleepiness away as he steps out of their shared bedroom, looking for his twin. It has been 2 days since Makoto was released from the hospital, but he's not healing properly. Physically, yes. But mentally. Minato could see something lurking behind his twin's eyes, clouding his eyes with fear and guilt. Minato understands them very well, it's like his first kill that time. If Minato always show a calm facade then Makoto is his bright grins. But he could only hide so much in front of Minato, because if one of them is in distress, the other would know. Such is the bond of twins, their mother once said. Through the moonlight which shines from the open window in the living room, he could see Makoto, sitting alone on the sofa and staring out to the moon. Silently, Minato walks to his twin and sits down beside him. Makoto hasn't reacted, but Minato knows Makoto sees him there. "Go back to sleep, Atato." He softly says, without even glancing at Minato. "Always put a tough face," Minato thinks as he sighs. Then, he spreads his blanket around Makoto and himself, sets a comfortable position on the sofa leaning to his twin and closes his eyes. "I'll sleep wherever you are." He mumbles. Makoto's shoulder drop, days of pent frustration and sadness drops from the wall as Minato feels Makoto's trembling body leans to his, slowly relaxing. Minato holds Makoto's hands because he can and because Makoto needs it. And for the silent message, "I'm here, we are safe, we will be fine." Minato hears a soft sigh and a soft murmur, "Thank you Minato." The twins fall to a dreamless comfortable sleep. About a week after Makoto released from hospital, Minato invites Kushina to help Namika's twins with their sealing study. Frankly, it mostly to help Makoto since Minato's calligraphy only improved for a fraction, not enough yet to make anything. Minato doesn't understand why, every time Makoto and Kushina meets, they always start with an intense staring contest. This time, Makoto breaks out first as he huffs and pulls out his crafted seal and shows it to the redhead. "I can't make this thing work, what do you think, tomato?" Kushina looks very irritated by the nickname and is itchy to punch Makoto, but she grits her teeth and focuses herself on the seal instead. Soon enough she frowns and Minato excuses himself to start practicing more tedious calligraphy. "What's this?" Kushina asks, then she points at something on Makoto's seal. "Why do you put this character on smoke bomb seal?" Then Minato hears Makoto's voice, "It's to make the color yellow. Or golden. But I don't know why I can't make it right." "And this one?" "That's so the flash lasts longer than 2 seconds. Also don't know if that could work." There's a silence, and when Minato looks up from his calligraphy, it's to see Kushina gawk at his twin. You made this by yourself." Makoto raises an eyebrow, "Of course. Have you ever find a yellow smoke bomb with golden flash anywhere?" Kushina seems to gawk more, "If that's possible. And you just learned sealing for what, 2 months? Not even 1 month?" Makoto shakes his head. 2 weeks. Gotta save a distressed red-haired princess and get bedridden for about a week, you see. The Uzumaki understands the underlying message and scowls. I don't believe you. Both Minato and Makoto blinks. Excuse me? Makoto asks, somehow offended. Then Kushina shakes his head, her eyes still trailing the seal's design in her hands. You can't make seal this complex just by 2 weeks. It's impossible. Makoto's expression turns carefully blank as he pulls out his other crafted seals, the success ones, Minato notes, and shows them to Kushina. The redhead looks at the seals, then at Makoto suspiciously, but takes them anyway and begin inspecting them in silence. Her eyes widens by every seconds. You. Minato waits, watching the girl's expression carefully. You're a genius. Kushina blurts out, somehow incredulous but odd at the same time. Makoto shows his smug smile, rolls his eyes as if saying duh, damn right I know I am. Now tomato, if you could stop looking at me like I'm a very very handsome god who just descended from heaven and helped me on this seal, I will appreciate that very much. Quickly, the redhead scowls, probably by the nickname and by Makoto's narcissistic tendencies, and huffs, fine, bro calm, I'll show you the great knowledge of sealing by a true Uzumaki. Then the redheads snatch a nearby brush and begin drawing design with Makoto closely watching. And as they both drown themselves on book, papers, and ink, Minato finally exhaled a relieved sigh. That's pretty peaceful for their first meeting, and finally, Minato could continue doing his tedious calligraphy peacefully. 13 years old, Minato comes home to find his older brother hangs upside down, his ankle on windowsill while the rest of his feet must be outside, and his head touches the floor. Predictably, he nearly had a heart attack. Slowly, Minato walks closer to his twin, who is frowning with one hand covers his mouth as if in deep thoughts. But before Minato could say anything, Makoto lets his hand down and speaks, I think I should start hiding. Minato blinks. Far too used to Makoto doing weird things, he doesn't ask why does he hangs upside down, but, from what? From the world, dearest brother. From life. Minato shows his most incredulous look he could muster at this brother. When he sees Makoto still won't budge from his position, he could only shakes his head. You know what, he doesn't want to know. Just Makoto and his antics. When Minato enters his room the next day, it's to see a raven-haired teenager standing in the middle of the room. Minato blinks. He's surprised, yes, but he can't feel any hostile intent from the teen. He doesn't look suspicious either, for some reason. Then said teen turns his head to look at Minato, and he realizes why. That teen has the same face as Minato. That teen is his twin brother Makoto. With black hair. Minato stares blankly at his twin. From now on, Makoto Namikaze doesn't exist. Minato instantly alarmed, he remembers Makoto's words yesterday, from the world, dearest brother, from life, and he frowns. But you're. Makoto shakes his head, an apologetic smile on his face. Minato Namikaze is the only son of Namikaze family. He slowly says, my name is Makoto. No family name. How Makoto could spew something so painful like that with straight face and firm determination somehow disappoints Minato. Very much. Looking at Makoto's eyes, Minato realizes his twin is serious. Dead serious. He wants to throw his family away, to throw Minato away. Why? Minato can't help but to ask. He must have shown a sad expression as Makoto looks very very apologetic, this has to be done, brother. The outside world will forget Makoto Namikaze as he doesn't exist anymore outside. But he exists here, inside this room, this house. Only in this house. But what would it do to have a family nobody knows? What will it do to have a forgotten family? What good it will be if he can't talk about Makoto to anyone but himself? Why is this happening? This is not funny, Makoto. I never meant to be funny. The twins has a staring contest then. For Minato, it seems to last forever as the more he looks at his twin's eyes, the more he realizes that Makoto is very serious. And it rips Minato's heart apart. Of course Minato knows Makoto does this for a reason. A very logical reason, it must be. But Makoto is not willing to tell the reason, and Minato feels like he's left behind. Like Makoto Namikaze doesn't exist anymore. Like what his twin said. He's disappointed and sad and confused. Is it because Minato, somehow? Did he do something wrong? Does Makoto simply doesn't want to be Minato's brother anymore? But what will I say if they asked about you? Minato tries again, simply because he doesn't want to lose his brother, not like this. Makoto shows his painful twisted smile then, say, Minato-kun, where's your brother? I haven't seen him anywhere. There's a silence before understanding dawned on Minato, how Makoto won't budge even a bit and how Minato should speak nothing about Makoto at LL from now on, and he, too, copies his brother's bitter smile. There it is. That's the answer. Minato doesn't understand. And his childish side demands answer, his childish side is sad and very bitter to his brother. His childish side wants to also leave Makoto alone and forgets that he has an older brother. Hiraya-sensei asked me if I want to travel with him. Minato tries again, for the last time, he asked if I want to leave the village and be his protege. He challenged. Minato just wants to hear the reason or apologize, or maybe Makoto will consider his choices on this, and Minato will also consider his option of leaving Makoto alone. But to his disappointment, to fuel his sadness, Makoto simply turns away and nods. This is a war time, Minato. Please have a safe trip. Minato makes his expression blank, and calmly, silently, he walks out of the room, broken-hearted. Jiraiya never see his genius student being this upset before. It's so painfully obvious that he loses his calm and collected self. He frowns and twitch every so often, like something bugs his mind, and he can't get rid of it. It puts his teammates on edge as Minato is the one they take notices, the one pulls them together on the ground. Seriously though, he's never this upset before. Not even being in front of enemy and his first kill does this much damage on the blonde boy. So it must be something to do with something precious or someone close to him. The twins never fought before. They are always together and completely in sync, so can it be? Jiraiya asks Minato to eat ramen after training, to ask about his problem, and probably to get answer for his offer yesterday. The man instantly become more alarmed when he sees Minato's strained smile and small nod. He's usually excited to eat ramen with him. So this must be serious. Where's your twin, Minato? Jiraiya carefully asks, as he watches Minato plays with his chopsticks and his unfinished ramen. The blonde looks up, twists his lips to one bitter, hurtful smile, then continue playing with his broth. Jiraiya is very confused. Whatever problem it is, it's the one he can't ignore as this will disturb Minato's performances, but this is also one which Minato should solve alone. And the kid now is in no mind to think levelly. Have you considered my offer, then? Minato seems relieved to the change of topic as he nods, yes, sensei. I will travel with you. His shaky voice betrays the determination on his face, and Jiraiya wonders if this is the cause of him being so upset. It probably is, as the twins never get separated before and Minato must be worried for his older twin. Don't worry, brat. I'll look for someone to be your twin's company. Minato's blue eyes widens in surprise. Jiraiya could see his relieved and happy glint in those eyes for a split second before they disappeared. Then he nods and smiles, far more relaxed than before. Thank you, sensei. Jiraiya huffs. Just twins being worried for each other, perhaps. No problem, brat. Makoto stares at the jounin in front of him. The jounin stares back. He is very annoyed. No, really. He just successfully md his dear brother, the yellow flash of Konoha, the hero, the youngest ninja with flea on side order on bingo book, upset with him. He just made his brother disappointed and sad so hard he wanted to just leave Makoto alone and travels with his pervert sensei. Makoto wants to tear his hair out. He knows Minato would be upset, but not this upset, damn it. And now said pervert sensei offers a pitiful snake to be his teacher. His fingers twitched and Makoto scowls. Just because Jiraiya thinks he can't take care of himself doesn't mean he can give him to Snake's lair. To be eaten by a disgusting zombie snake. Makoto doesn't want that. Like, at all. He hates Orochimaru. No matter what his cousin said about Orochimaru, how awesome he is or how handsome he is, he doesn't care. Old man megalomaniac Madara is far better than this creepy snake. His cousin is a crazy fangirl anyway. I don't like you. He rudely says to one Orochimaru, and both Jiraiya and Orochimaru is surprised. I don't like snakes. Makoto continues. Then Orochimaru disappears in a puff of smoke, and while Makoto is smiling smugly, Jiraiya gawk at the older Namikaze like he just grw another head. Makoto doesn't care, really. Makoto gawk at the white-haired jounin in front of him. One Tsukumo Haddock smiles at him. I like you. Makoto says, because Minato is upset to him and he doesn't care anymore to any of this ninja shit, and the white fang blinks, surprised. He notices how Jiraiya has exhaled in relief, but Makoto continues, please teach me Kenjutsu, Haddock-san. Makoto quickly bows a perfect 90-degree. When he straightens himself again, Tsukumo seems to be amused, which Makoto doesn't know if it's good or bad, but being close to one minor infamous character is probably a good thing, right? Who knows, maybe he could stop Tsukumo from harakiri and tease his little Kakashi for his entire life. That is a good thought there. Jiraiya and Tsukumo glances at each other before Tsukumo nods, and as they make their way to the Haddock compound, Makoto can't help but to think about butterfly effect. How much did his presence and this decision affect people? Hopefully he hasn't ruined something big. But with one Minato Namikaze, his dear younger brother whom he loves so much, being upset with him, Makoto isn't sure anymore. Yes, Makoto acts like the world is going to end just because Minato is upset with him, but seriously, it's the first time he has a twin, and when you've been living alone with your twin who's going to be the most favorite hero in the world, you can't help to think that yes, he is your world. Yes, Makoto proudly admits he has brother complex to Minato. Sue him. Minato looks at his older brother, black-haired, twisted bitter sad apologetic smile, so odd, standing in front of him, and can't help but to frown. He can't help but to curl his lips and silently asks, why? Why do you have to hide? Is it something I did? What is my fault? Why are you doing this? But Makoto remains firm even if his gaze softens, and he softly shakes his head. Makoto takes a step forward, pats Minato's head, instantly makes his tense shoulders drop, how he doesn't like his calming brother now, and grins. Come back and be awesome, dearest little brother. Minato is smiling too, albeit strained, bitter and small because, even if he's sad, upset and confused, Makoto is still his bright brother who could calm Minato just by his smile. Actually, Makoto is still having a hard time thinking how did he end up in this predicament. Being interrogated by one-headed Tsukumo, that is. As Makoto's blue eyes looks up to meet Tsukumo's stern gray ones, Makoto holds down the urge to look away or to scowl for his stupidity. It's probably because he's still upset to himself, then upset to this ninja world, then to his stupidity, again. Because all he could think was how can he become strong even if the answer is painfully obvious. He can't, and then he remembered his uncle used to taught him kendo on his previous life, then he realized Tsukumo is using sword, and all of that combined to his stupidity and his mouth, here he is. Sitting on wooden floor in front of Tsukumo Haddock, inside Haddock clan's training room, with flat eyes well said Jounin assessing him in silence. Why do I have to teach you? Tsukumo calmly, icily, asks. While Makoto understands the cold tone and stern look is necessary to know one's resolve, it still annoys Makoto to no end. Makoto is so not going to lose to him. I'm a liability. Makoto says, flat cold tone. He ignores slight raise of Tsukumo's eyebrow and continues, my brother is a certified genius. At the thought of Minato, he lets a ghost of smile curves on his lips, he can and will be the strongest ninja, a hero the world will know, will hate, will worship and adore. Makoto suppresses a snort. God knows how many fangirls of one Minato Namek is in his world. Even more so in this world, must be. Truth be told, Minato was his favorite character back then. Then Makoto's face turned stone cold again, but I can't do anything. I don't have chakra reserve necessary to be a ninja. Yet I can't stand still and be a good civilian because I am more than them. Tsukumo studies Makoto carefully, but the latter doesn't care. It hurts and leave a bitter taste in his mouth when he talks about his flaws, but it's a familiar feeling, really. He was a patient of chronic asthma. Yet he was a champion on parkour and capoeira, one who will go down on last moments else he'll get bedridden for a week. This liability, having liability like this is familiar. He steeled his resolve and exhaled, I want to change that. I may be still useless after this, but before that I will try. I will not go down without trying. Like the academy, Makoto thinks, and he allows a determined smile, I am still the older brother, I have to protect my cute little brother, even if I am a liability. Thankfully, Tsukumo seems to be satisfied by his answer as the man smiles back and nods. And so, Makoto Namikaze's training started. Calligraphy. Minato looks up from the book on his book and smiled to Jiraiya. Said Jounin only raises an eyebrow, questioning, yet he sits down beside his student. Minato puts back his brush and his book, accepting green popsicle from his sensei. Jiraiya lets Minato enjoys his popsicle in hot afternoon air, leaning back to the tree on his back. Minato does so, even when he leans more on Jiraiya than the bark behind him. So? Minato hums, we want to learn Fuinjutsu. By Minato's bitter smile, Jiraiya knows he must means my brother and I in his we. Jiraiya frowns. Why? The blonde shrugs, he said it's the foundation of life. And there are no seal masters in Konoha, so we should be one. The man snorts. Does the kid not know that he's leaning to one Fuinjutsu master right now? Minato notices the snort but doesn't say anything, it seems. And, normally, Jiraiya would laugh shrugs off brats who's learning sealing. As it's complicated and needs extreme patience, not subject for brats. But it's the Namikaze twins here. Minato is a certified genius and according to Minato, back in academy his older twin is also a genius on every subject except ninjutsu and is very skilled on taijutsu. How Minato said very back then makes Jiraiya curious just how good the kid is on taijutsu. And remembering Makoto makes Jiraiya's thoughts runs to his mission on AIM on this shinobi war, on how Hanzo the salamander called him and his teammates Densetsu no Sanin, how the nickname has stuck to the world, and how in the hell did that kid knew about that nickname months before Hanzo called him Sanin. Heck, even before Sarutobi-sensei gave them the mission. He managed to take his thoughts off of it as he wrote his first book. He was even convinced that Nagato could be the savior of the world, not Minato. But now, he's a genius. Jiraiya blinks at Minato's tone. He can almost hear the underline in that word. When Jiraiya doesn't respond, Minato elaborates, he mastered calligraphy on 3 hours. The Jounin coughed as he got choked by his popsicle, and Minato is too amused to stop and he understands sealing in 1 day. And by sad, longing look Minato says, he made his own smoke bomb seals and explosive seals in 2 weeks, even. What? By now, Jiraiya looks at the kid incredulously. That's impossible. Minato grins, there's hint of proudness and mischief, but Minato just takes out a paper seal, ties it on one of his kunai, and throws it to the lake. Immediately, soundlessly there's a flash of yellow, which would be blinding in close distance, for a few seconds before yellow smoke raises on the lake surface, covering half of the big lake with it. That's one of his creations. Jiraiya is confused by Minato's smugness, but he's more shocked to see a prefect flash plus smoke bomb crafted by a 13-year-old kid. And in the back of his head, he's wary of Makoto Namikaze. Wary of the fate holder, if it's really him. But you've mistaken, Gaki. Jiraiya says as he pushes the thought of prophecies to the back of his head, and Minato looks up to his sensei with a questioning look. Jiraiya grins. Konoha does have a seal master. And that master is right in front of you. Those delighted sparks in his blue eyes is enough answer for Jiraiya to start training the kid on sealing. Between Spartan Kenjutsu training, part-time jobs, practice sealing, and practice his henj, it's a wonder that Makoto hasn't lashed out in frustration. Probably because his temper as Namikaze is longer than him in his previous life. And in this case, it is a good thing. Still, he can't help but to scowl and glare at his reflection in his room's mirror. Makoto doesn't like the smell of the hair dye, yet his chakra reserve is not developed enough to do henj for his hair for more than 4 hours a day. He tried to do 5 hours yesterday and regrets it as he instantly fainted without warning. Chakra exhaustion is such an ass. Another reason why he seems to loathe his reflection is because he always remembers his last day with Minato. This black hair is the reason why Minato was upset with him. Or, Makoto mused as he tries to comb his hair, it's because Makoto doesn't want to tell why. The reason of him trashed his family name and indirectly doesn't admit Minato as his brother anymore. But it's not like he can tell Minato the truth, like hey brother I do this because you're going to commit genocide in upcoming war, hailed as hero and greatest Hokage, and because I'm useless so it's better if the world doesn't know about me or their assassins will kill me in 1 week. That just won't work. And Makoto has never been a liar. His name backfires at him, maybe, as his honesty prevents him from any lies. Makoto does wonders though, does this plan flawed? Does he being too paranoid to execute hiding now? But he is sure now is the right time. With Makoto's tendency as social butterfly, everyone in the village will know about him, and once they know about Minato, they'll figure out that the Yellow Flash has a twin brother. Makoto also has never been a quiet one, he's sure he will boast about Minato until the villagers' ears bleed and he himself can't stop it, then the news will spread like wildfire. Makoto got assassinated in no time, and Minato cries to his death. So hiding should commence as early as possible, as the villagers would not bat an eyelash to one boisterous black-haired orphan who just coincidentally has the same face as the Yellow Flash. Makoto would survive and nobody is crying. Because Makoto never likes it when Minato cries. It doesn't suit his chubby Hokage face. The now raven-haired teen scrunched up his nose and thinks. Maybe, it's just his paranoia, maybe, everything is not that bad and he can commence this shit when he's older. Maybe he's overthinking this again. Maybe. Makoto jolts when he hears the front door being violently slammed with a loud crack. It's either someone has broke to the house or one Kushina Uzumaki on a very bad mood has entered. It's probably the latter since they gave Kushina a spare key for whatever that red-haired hot-blooded teen wants to do besides study sealing. Makoto's scowl deepens and he strolls out to meet the Uzumaki catching sight of her long red hair on dinner table. He takes a closer look on her and she's scowling, too. Her face is red almost like her hair, yet her eyes are glassy, tears threatening to spill out. Ah yes, Makoto forgets one more problem in this lifetime, namely Kushina Uzumaki. This is bad, Makoto thinks. He's never good on handling crying women. Not in his previous life. And he's been intentionally meanie on the Uzumaki to prevent her having feelings on him. He shudders at the thought. He has Minato's face, and Minato's face is really handsome, and him being nice with Minato being so far away God knows where will ruin everything. But with Kushina wants to cry like that Makoto is torn between being nice or mean as he sits down in front of Kushina. He doesn't want this act of kindness in devastating times make something happens. This is not Korean drama, damn it. If Kushina has a crush on him what if Naruto doesn't born because of it? Makoto shudders. No. He's overthinking it again. Kushina is still his friend, Naruto's mother or not. And he remembers his mother told him to be nice on women but what the hell, woman? That still sounds rude and Makoto doesn't know whether to praise or scold himself. Kushina grits her teeth and slams her fist on the wooden table, furious, leave me alone. Makoto meets Kushina's glare head on and Kushina breaks away first as she slumps back on the chair and supports her face on her hands on the table. But this is my house, why are you here? Makoto wants to say, but he can't bring himself to say because Kushina's shoulders has began shaking. Makoto keeps quiet, he takes out his ink and brush and began doing usual calligraphy. Writing his name and different characters. Since Makoto is sure he can't concentrate on seals with Kushina's soft sniffs every now and then. A loud sigh, then Kushina lets her hands down and leans back. My clan is gone. She whispered. Makoto's brush stopped. The war has ended by turning Whirlpool to ruins. A pause, they said, it's impossible for anyone to survive. That's it, a wonder the island still exists. Everything my family, why am I? She chokes, and just like that, the dam breaks. Kushina Uzumaki, the red-hot habanero, cries. The only woman feared by their generation is silently crying. How soft her wails might be, her violently shaking shoulders give it away. Makoto keeps quiet. He's hoping for a miracle happens, specifically miracles like Minato who's suddenly back to Konoha to calm Kushina down. But of course, that shit is too much luxury for him and finally drops his shoulders in defeat. Fine, he thinks as he glares to his calligraphy, fine, damn it. He puts back his brush and walks to the kitchen. With quick movements he takes 2 cups, 1 water and 1 hot chocolate. Thankfully he still had some chocolate powder and hot water. In around 30 seconds, both cups already served on the table in front of still choking Kushina, and with another quick moves, he puts a pack of tissues beside the cups. Kushina seems to be calmed down when Makoto sits back in front of her. I shouldn't be here. She said, voice shaking. I should be able to help them. They shouldn't send me here to be a Jinchuriki, Makoto finishes inwardly, yet his expression gives nothing away. Kushina scowls. You can't, tomato. I can. She almost yells. It's impressive how her voice doesn't shake anymore, yet still hysterics. I should be. I'm the princess of my clan. I should be there for my people. Yet here I am, enjoying life while they fight and murdered. Why me? Why not someone else? Her voice become more and more hysterics. Tomato, listen, everything is gone and yet here I am. Unscathed and healthy. What will they say about their princess? Useless. Cowardly. Kushina. Makoto has never called the Uzumaki with her first name before, and hearing him calls the redhead with soft tone like that surprised both of them. The Namikaze does a better job of handling it, though. It's not your fault. Makoto continues, you don't know what they will do. Had you know, you still can't do anything as Konoha is far from Whirlpool. Had they know they will be murdered, all of them, they will look for a way to save their princess. To continue their culture and heritage. To build again from nothing. A pause, they believe in their princess, Kushina. They know how smart and strong you are. Kushina's violet eyes has started to be glassy again and Makoto could hear soft strained sobs. Crying doesn't mean you are weak. It means you've been strong for too long. Makoto doesn't expect that salty internet quote to give any effect. He doesn't expect Kushina to wail loudly this time, really. Okay, maybe he expects Kushina to wail, but not this loud, not sounds this painful. But his weary blue eyes stares at Kushina sadly, tiredly, and wonders if this event will do anything to ninja history. Just him and his overthinking tendencies. 14 years old. Rubbing his bruised hand, Makoto tries hard not to scowl to the purple and blues on his skin. Keyword being tries. He hears someone snorts and looks up just in time to see Konoha's white fang smile down and sits down beside him. Ha, ha, sensei, really funny. He said. Tsukumo's smile merely widens. Oh? He asks, amused, I'm not the one who got tripped 5 times in a row. Makoto's scowl deepens and Tsukumo grins, and I warn you where the traps are. Makoto makes non-committal strangled sound which makes Tsukumo chuckles. By 1 second before I stepped or slipped on it. You knew I'm going to fall for it anyway. As he feels Tsukumo's hand ruffles his hair, Makoto exhales to relax himself. This man is scary when he teach Kenjutsu. It's only half a year lesson and Tsukumo already deemed Makoto to be worthy on facing him while dodging traps. Rather harmless traps with holes, smoke bombs, random jutsus and wooden weapons fly at him, they still hurt as fuck. And while he should watch out for very subtle hints of traps around, he should also watch for Tsukumo who will jump out of nowhere swinging his sharp wooden sword. Not to say Hada compound is so big and there are plenty of places to put traps and hide. Not even his parkour acrobatic skills could save him from the traps. Fucking ninjas, man. Cheer up, Mako-chan. You could dodge a quarter of them. Don't call me that, sensei. He automatically says and rolls his eyes, yeah, and I got slapped by your sword every time I dodged them. But Tsukumo just chuckles and ruffles his black hair more. Makoto huffs. At least this Spartan training results on something. Now his chakra reserve has developed and he can use henge for 12 hours. That means almost all day and he doesn't need to throw money for hair dye anymore. It was hard at first, maintaining henge while being beaten up by Tsukumo, but at the end of the day his henge still intact even when he fainted. Such accomplishment which always makes Makoto proud. Now, honey, don't be meanie to Mako-chan. Makoto looks sideways just in time to meet Miss Haddock's twinkling eyes and smirk when the brown-haired woman sits beside him. Well, I can't help it, you know he's so cute, darling. Tsukumo chimed cheerfully. And Makoto groans. I am naughty weakly says, to get ignored by the Haddock couple. Well, I can't argue with that, dear. The now raven-haired teen is torn to facepalm or ignore the usual embarrassing couple, but he decides to show his long-suffering look instead. "Auntie, please." She knows Makoto hates that nickname, and she told her husband to not call him that, but still, what's the meaning if she herself calls him that? Tsukumo snorts and Miss Haddock laughs. Her pale, white fingers move to take both of his hands in her hand. Makoto watches as both of the woman's hands glow green. Her hands moved up, slowly trailing his bruises and heals his wounds to nothing. Makoto inspects his hands, admiring her works, how his skin has become new again, free from those disgusting black and blue bruises, splotches of red blood. He looks at his torn black pants and how his wounds on the feet is healed, too. His blue eyes meets Miss Haddock's kind, warm black eyes, and Makoto can't help but to give his best grin to this kind woman. "Stay for dinner alright, Mako-chan." Makoto blinks and looks to the yard. Up the sky has turned orange and red, purple even, and less than 2 hours it would completely be dark. There's no food in his fridge and the couple is actually happy rather than burdened by him, but he himself still feels like a burden to them and he hasn't locked his house for the night. Also he can't make the couple takes care of him every time and God knows how he can be an overthinking mess. He feels something hits his forehead and yelps to rubs it. Makoto glares at Tsukumo who just flicked his forehead but huffs when he looks at the man's unimpressed stare. "I'm impressed by how much you could think as a brat," Tsukumo solemnly says. Makoto rolls his eyes and Miss Haddock chuckles. "It's fine, Mako-chan, really. It's not good for a kid like you to be alone, too." Under Tsukumo's threatening yet unimpressed look and Miss Haddock's sparkling smiles, it's not like Makoto could say no under those looks so reluctantly. One Makoto Namikaze nods. "But I'll help you, auntie. I won't take no as answer." Miss Haddock coos at Makoto then, ramblings about how cute and polite and nice Makoto is, while said kid is struggling to keep up a straight face when the human hugs him. Seeing Tsukumo's jealous looks he wants to yell, "You get to hug her anytime you want anyway. Pervert ass. And it's not like I enjoy her on my face." But he is far too polite to do that. Auntie." Makoto reluctantly peeks to Haddock family's kitchen, watching the woman preparing dinner. Auntie Haddock has been eager to pull him to dinner with the couple whenever she can for the past month, and it's more often than not. It's not like he can cook and he can't always spare time to eat outside. Instant food also annoy Makoto to no end, one more trait he brings from his previous life. The barbecue shop's lady where he works is kind enough to give him leftover to eat, but that's it. Makoto really doesn't want to be a burden to the Haddock family, and Tsukumo is too eager to tell his wife that Makoto hasn't been eating properly. So Makoto thinks of a way, that is, start to learn how to cook. "Yes, dear. Auntie is too kind," Makoto thinks, "this little family is too kind," he repeats inwardly as he steps closer to the brown-haired woman. "But one more debt, just one more debt. Can you teach me how to cook?" Makoto calmly asks. Miss Haddock turns off the stove and turns around. She looks straight at Makoto's eyes and the younger doesn't even blink, he meets the stare head on. Finally, the woman huffs yet smiled as she picks up the soup out of the stove. "We already said this so many times, Makoto-chan." Her tone is kind and the soup smells good, "You will never be a burden to us. I'm happy someone other than my silly husband loves my cooking, you see." A pause and you know how Tsukumo loves to have you around. Makoto opens his mouth to say but and utters reasons why they shouldn't care too much about him. He's used to live alone in his previous life, having an aloof family is usual to him, so this kind of treatment still baffled him to no end, but finally he slumps his shoulders in defeat and nods. "I still want to learn how to cook, though," he carefully says and grins when the woman glances at him. "My awesome little brother could be back from his travel anytime, and I want to surprise him." "Oh Mako-chan," Miss Haddock coos, "aren't you adorable?" Makoto fights the urge to roll his eyes and focus himself on upcoming cooking lesson instead. Embarrassingly, Makoto admits he kinda neglects his sealing studies. Between celebration on the ending war which caused his work become much more busy than usual, runs away from Kushina's temper tantrums for months because she's still so bitter her clan's gone, more advanced Kenjutsu training from Tsukumo-sensei and cooking lessons with Miss Haddock, he really doesn't have time to practice his sealing. Thankfully, Kushina seems to be already warming up now and Tsukumo-sensei is out on mission, so Makoto have time to actually hold his brush and be productive on sealing. Still, he can't get a hold of this advanced sealing array on sealing chakra and objects. He doesn't understand how the characters works and isn't that a surprise for Makoto who could understand sealing arrays as he understands chemical compounds to get frustrated on it. No matter how he copies the design, have Kushina activates it with her chakra, it's always a failure. And all modification seems to not work while in theory it should. Just what the hell, man? I don't understand. Makoto whines, almost throws his brush away and lays down on the floor, then scowls. That doesn't make any sense. Kushina who sits beside him glances at the book, then to the sealing array. For a moment she frowns as she thinks, before her eyes widens. It does make sense, you dumb bro calm. Makoto rolls to face the redhead. Why? Explain to me then, Tomato Princess. After months interacting with Makoto, Kushina has learned to ignore the nicknames and solemnly says, the seal seems to lack on character because it doesn't need more characters to work. Adding characters only ruins the stability. It needs blood and chakra enhanced ink. A pause, you can't write it using regular ink and brush, you need ones who could transfer chakra. Another pause and Kushina's violet eyes meet Makoto's blue ones, she smiles proudly. Why do you think us Uzumakis are very proficient on sealing? It needs chakra, you dumb. It needs whole lot of chakra to create combinations on things. And us Uzumakis has exceptionally large amount of chakra. Silence. Then Makoto rolls away, completely still he looks away stares out to the blue sky from the window. Well, shit then. Hello liability, how I love you so much. How we can't be separated, even in a new world. Kushina waits for mockery, for stupid nicknames, for scowls, but not the chill Makoto. Not the way his shoulder slumps in defeat and the way he hums like he already knows yet it sounds so sad. That doesn't fit Makoto at all. Bro calm? Kushina warily asks. Yeah? And not that soft defeated not, obviously. Why are you slacking? She asks, annoyed, but the usual hostile is not there. I didn't come here to watch you mope around, dumbus. Kushina could hear Makoto snorts and the soft whispered answer, I would if I can. He murmurs. Then Kushina frowns in confusion. But before the redhead asks, Makoto continues, I don't have the necessary chakra to be a ninja, ugly tomato. Kushina blinks, trying to process Makoto's words, I have chakra reserve of a civilian. A pause, as Kushina feels her blood runs cold, why do you think I didn't graduate from academy? I can't be ninja, and now I can't be a seal master, too. But you understand it more than me, Kushina wants to say. But you're a genius and great even if you're mean, but you're the one who said you both will be famous seal masters. But what about Minato? Kushina asks, somehow angry, though she doesn't know to whom she's angry. To Makoto for his limited chakra reserve. To Makoto's parents. To the world. Kushina hears another snort, my little brother is a genius. So you are, Kushina wants to say, but she keeps quiet. He will be great, I tell you. There's a long silence before Makoto's determined yet bitter voice comes, I want to support him as much as I can. And sealing is really fun but Kushina feels sad when Makoto shrugs and when his smiles doesn't quite reach his eyes, I'll find another way. Somehow. The redhead comes closer and puts her hand on Makoto's shoulder, squeezing it hard. She doesn't want to see that expression on Makoto's face or even Minato and she'll find a way to help them both. They are her dearest friends, after all. Makoto never thought that his chakra reserve and his inability to study sealing any further actually makes his mood go very sour for the next week. Well, he kinda expected his mood go downhill, but not to this extent. But not until it actually prevents him from having fun in his cooking and kinjutsu studies. Or prevents him from focusing on his part-time job. It's frustrating because this is almost like those women in period times. Probably because Minato, his sweet kind calm twin, is not here to calm him down. Or because he's a teenager again, and being a teenager, meaning being rebellious dramatic salty as hell shit. Well, he probably was rebellious dramatic salty kid back then, what with his chronic asthma and his eagerness to run around and throw himself from one building to another. Is saltiness actually getting put in use? Actually, he can't remember his time as teenager before this lifetime, as the memories appears in unclear flashes of unimportant events. Really, reincarnation is so weird. Not even his cooking lesson, which actually is fun especially with Miss Haddock's tendency to gossip about anything in the village, could lift his mood up. He's sure his mentor and his kind wife already noticed this. Ninjas are sharp after all, and you can't ignore a woman's magical instinct. Yet they decided to not say anything, which is surprising for Makoto. He thought the couple would pry soon, or at least attempt to ask Makoto what's wrong, but no, that didn't happen, and he's not sure to be happy or to be salty. Makoto blames puberty again for this conflicting annoying feelings. He misses sealing, though. He really do. It's not only because the good feeling to know that you're the best, not only satisfaction to see Kushina's odd yet annoyed scowl every time he could craft something new, but it's also his memories. Sometimes, when he held his brush and concentrated to make a seal, he would remember, his grandfather, thin-lipped, ordered him to do calligraphy. He could even remember how to do the strokes correctly. Or remember his grandfather's slap on his hand every time he did a minuscule of mistake. Sometimes it's of a classroom, with a teacher explaining chemical reactions which he doesn't know what is that, but he could understand it perfectly. Again, reincarnation is so weird. And to think he would lost one of his resources to remember, to discover who he was before, to maybe, remembers his family's face before the Namikazes, to remember other things beside their smile, it actually pissed him off. Alright, it saddens him too, but Makoto's never good on dealing with sadness and his temper turned them to agitation. Not quite anger yet. Makoto-kun. The raven-hair jerked and quickly stopped his knife in mid-air before it could chop his own fingers. The carrots are already cut off perfectly. Huh. Makoto doesn't turn his head to look at Miss Haddock, he takes a plate and put the carrots in the plate. He gritted his teeth and is trying to even his breathing to at least get rid of the scowl before he could properly face Miss Haddock. Because Miss Haddock doesn't deserve his anger. She has done so much for him and the least thing he could do is to be always polite to the woman. Yes, Auntie? He asks, lifting his head and pulls his lips to a smile. From Auntie's frown, he probably does a really bad job at smiling this time. Miss Haddock pulls her lips to a thin line, a displeased yet worried expression on her face. And Makoto waits. It could be the time when the woman is finally done with his antics, that finally she asks her even pry, and when she confesses her concern, and Makoto would just say that it's fine, nothing to worry about. Did you see where the boiled eggs are? I've been looking for them and then, here's this low explosive sound coming from behind him, and Makoto flinched. His blue eyes looks up to Miss Haddock's eyes narrows dangerously, and he remembered that he accidentally puts the eggs in microwave, it should be the pies not the eggs. How did that happen? Where did this stupidity come from? Mako-chan. Oh, shit. Care to explain that? Makoto grimaced, sorry, Auntie. Yeah, he deserved that spatula bonk on the back of his head alright, but it doesn't stop him from yelping in pain or curses while rubbing his bruised head. Also doesn't stop him from at least giving the woman a weak glare when she gives him an hour-long scolding on safety in the kitchen. It was 2 days after the microwave accident, 2 days since Makoto goes home with bruises and a deep scowl, when he wanted nothing more than to wreck everything and burn everything to pieces. To his shame, he actually wrecked his room a bit, he threw pillows everywhere and flipped a chair until he realized how immature his actions was and began reflecting his tantrums in the past week after he tidied up his mess, of course. It was sunny, it was weekend, and he has no part-time job to do. So Makoto spends his time on another adventure, he grinned a bit at this thought, namely hopping from one tree branch to another tree branch or tree branch to roof, roof to roof, around the village. It feels nice to just let wind whips his face and he lets his muscle takes him to wherever it is. Makoto remembered the feeling of Parker from his previous life of course, he remembered them since he's 7. And he never went this quick, never felt this weightless and free before. It's as if he is stronger, faster, and he probably is because he has chakra now. Man, chakra does wonders to your body. Back when he watched Naruto he thought the grounds and tress and basically everything in this world is fragile they broke so easily. But now he realized that it's the chakra. Chakra caused superpowers and other cheats in life. He stopped on a tree branch because there's a commotion not far from where he is. A group of 5 kids 3 years old the smallest, probably, the rest are 4 and 5 years old standing right in front of a tree and they are looking up. Some in fear, some excitement, wow, are there stars in his eyes? And one looks like she wants to cry. Curious, Makoto looks to where they look and his blue eyes widens when he sees another 5 years old kid climbing his way up the tree and trying to reach a cat on one of the branch. He couldn't clearly hear what they shout either than high-pitched squeal and incoherent in a kid's way words. But he doesn't need to hear anything more because he hastily drops down and quickly, yet without sound, closes the gap between him and the crowd of chibis. Makoto was a halfway to them when cries of children was heard, followed by a crack of a branch snapping and Makoto runs. Then he jumped completely ignored the crowd's startled gasp beside him as he looks up in fear and stretched out his hand, ready to catch the falling kid with a yellow cat in his hands. He could feel a weight in his hands and his feet losing balance and the pain of his body hits the ground with the additional balance squashing his chest and stomach. Makoto closed his eyes because man, that hurt as fuck. And then I can't fucking breath. There are children squeals, screams. And clearly almost all of them screamed cat. The cat ran away again. And to his relieved sigh, the screams fades away and distances after a moment. If only the additional weight disappeared too. Wait. Hey, Makoto said, coughed, kid, I can't breath. Get up. The kid raven-haired, black short pants, black shirt with high collar, black shinobi sandals gets up, albeit he's shaking and clearly trying to hide his sobs. Makoto sets himself in a sitting position, nursing his chest and stomach. The kid sits down in front of him, looks down, and balled his hands in fists. The teen sighed. He doesn't like to see a kid or woman cry, and awkwardly, he reaches his hand out and ruffles the kid's black locks softly. Makoto noticed how the kid has frozen, but he continued anyway. You did good, by the way. That was very brave of you. I would cry if I were you. Then the kid looks up all snot-nosed, teary black eyes before he furiously wipes his tears and snot away with his hands. Makoto can't decide if he should be grossed out or praise the kid for his whiny bravery. But because Makoto is a decent person and always will be, he turned his head away and looks up to the sky instead, thinking of what is his twin doing right now. Does he eat properly? What does Jiraiya teach him? As he listens to the kid's sobs. Waiting for him to calm down. When the sobs finally died down, he turned his head to the kid again and just stares at him. To his chubby face, precisely. The kid's eyes locks up with him. He quickly drew up his hand up and, softly, flicked the kid's forehead. Makoto huffed when the kid yelped and become teary-eyed again. Huh. Crybaby. Hey. What was that for, he yelled, between tears. Well, at least the brat got guts. That was stupid, brat. You could have asked someone else to fetch the cat. He lightly scolded. What was the point anyway? You want to prove how great you are? Or do you want to get broken bones? Which one is it? Despite his harsh tone, he pulls the brats close and he began wiping the kid's tears with the bottom of his shirt. He should quickly wash this once he gets home as he's already grossed out, but whatever. And to his surprise, the kid has also gone very calm, borderline still, again. So, Makoto finally said, after he sighs and when the brat looks him with wide eyes, my name is Makoto. Who are you, kid? Bradman LD me not the same named strangers. Ooh oh, smart. Makoto raised an eyebrow, even to the one who saved you. You could have kidnapped me. The kid flippantly retorts, high-pitched tone and deviant glare, and then you told me to. Before the kid could say some ridiculous things, it has to be ridiculous childish reason, Makoto is sure. He flicked the kid's forehead again, a bit harder now, and frowns. The teen ignored the kid's yelp and mutters grumpily, ungrateful brat. Makoto huffed to the brat who's certainly, absolutely, going to cry again while rubbing his forehead, and he gets up, pocketing his hands in his pants pockets, and starts to walk away. Wait. The childish cry makes Makoto turns his head. What, brat? Want to report me for trying to kidnap you? The kid scowled, and his voice is no longer shaking. My grandmother also said to always say thanks to whoever helped you, he yelled. This will be the first time I do this, oh here. Uchiha Obito thanks you. Then he pointed at Makoto, then, still with teary eyes and snot-nosed, yet his glare surely could drill holes, if only his face isn't so chubby before he cried, and I will get my revenge on you. The kid runs away after, leaving Makoto, who has frozen and wide-eyed, alone. Uchiha Obito. That you be Jinchuriki Obito. That I want to destroy the world because y'all killed my crush Obito. That little crybaby adult badass Obito. The one who got crushed by boulders Obito. What? The fuck? This didn't change any major plot, right? Right. Fuck him and his overthinking mind. Seriously. Mako-kun, could you please fetch our guests for reserved table there? Makoto grins, no problem, granny. You rest up for now, I'll handle everything. The old woman laughs, I am not that old yet, Mako-kun. But thank you. The raven-haired nods, and he watched the shop owner walks to her private room before he takes off his apron, rolls up his white sleeves a bit and snatched the menu and his small notebook. Makoto walks to the shop's entrance and he stopped halfway when he sees the guests. It's his friends. From the academy. Inoichi, Chaoza, Shikaku, everyone seems to be present, heck, even Fugaku the leave me alone Uchiha and the busy Hiashi and his Ashi are there. It has been a long time since he saw them, and according to Minato, if his memory serves him right, then they, too, are busy with their own genin team. He snapped out of his thoughts and pulled his lips to a guarded yet polite smile, the one he usually uses to greet guests. He walked to the crowds of his friends and smiled a bit more when they quieted instantly. A reservation on Yamanaka-sen's name. Even his voice is polite yet firm, a far cry from his usual tone. Inoichi frowned, leveled Makoto with investigating look as if he's trying to get something out of Makoto. Or trying to remember something. Whichever it is, it makes Makoto silently anxious. And it was soon followed by others' stare as well. Makoto pushes the urges to fidget to the back of his mind. Finally, Inoichi nodded, his frown smoothened considerably, and Makoto holds his smile, please follow me. Makoto leads them to their table, he ignored their stares as he puts down the menu book and opens his notebook, ready to write their orders. The raven-haired thinks this is going well, with Shikaku already knows that he's indeed Makoto Namikaze, but decided to not speak about it, and others are still trying to figure things out. Makoto Tsume finally perked up after she sniffed the air, surprised, what are you doing here? Well, cover blown up with all eyes looking at him wide-eyed, so Makoto grinned. Hello Tsume. How's Kuromeru doing? A faint frown, is he not with you? He got injured. Tsume gritted her teeth and then she snarled, none of your business. Tsume, Shibe warns, and Tsume leveled him with a hot glare. And hello for you too, Shibe. He greeted cheerfully and continued by greeting his peers one by one. As for Tsume's question, it's obvious, right? I work here, of course. Why? Chaoza looks genuinely confused, aren't you a genin? Makoto inclined his head, who said that I graduated. The Akamichi blinked, and few seconds passed before he understands the underlying meaning. He looks ashamed, especially under Inoichi's and Shikaku's stare, but Makoto just shrugs them and others' die-eyed stares. Now, I'm here to serve, guys, not to chat. What are your orders, dearest sirs and madams? He writes their order while smiling and being a general good waiter he is, and is about to step back and goes to the kitchen when one Hiashi Hyuga calls, Namikaze-san. Makoto said, his right index finger moved left and right, none of that, Hyuga-san. He sets a rather grim smile, I am not Namikaze. You must mistook me with someone else. And that took everyone by surprise. Yoshino and Shikaku narrows their eyes though, suspicious. Even Fugaku leveled him with a cold, inspecting look. My name is Makoto, he began, plastering a fake grin as he tried to push away Minato's resentment the day the twins parted, a nobody orphan, without family name. He looks at each of their friends' pair of eyes one by one, careful not singling anyone out to show how serious he is. Ignoring their startled, inspecting, suspicious looks. And you would refer to me as Makoto, sirs, madams. Then he half bowed, I'll get back a bit, in the meantime, please enjoy your time in Shimanara-sen's barbecue shop. Makoto really wants to laugh at their faces but considering their confusion and concern, probably he shouldn't do that. Makoto looks at the kid teen, in front of him. And the teen Nawaki fucking Senju looks back. Isn't Nawaki supposed to die? Isn't he a casualty in the Second World Ninja War? But the war has ended and he's still alive. If he's alive and breathing now, does it mean Kato-dan is also alive? What? The Senju asks, raised an eyebrow, somehow defensive. The raven head blinks, and the most proper response he could give if only, The brown-haired teen frowns, are you disabled or something? Why are you here? Are you stalking me? And that snaps Makoto out. This little shit. Well, considering that I just talk gracefully like this, no, and you're the one who appeared right before that bush there, so no. It's true though. Makoto was just having a good time alone after few hours of parkouring on weekend. He dropped to a vacant clearing up the Hokage mountain, looking at them makes him think, he still can't wrap his head that he lived in a fictional world even now, and sorts of lay down on the tree, basking in warm spring sunlight and looking at the sky. Cloud watching you could say. When the Senju just appeared and sort of rolls beside him. Makoto instantly shots up sit down, and they had a staring match earlier. It probably went for quite a long time since Makoto's slow mind's having a little hard time registering one Nawaki Senju in front of him. Nawaki scowls and folds his hands in front of his chest, and do you know who I am? I do. Makoto dryly says, and flippantly looks away from the teen who looks a bit younger than him, the whiny, meanie, Nawaki Senju, grandson of first Hokage, are you not? To his surprise, Nawaki doesn't fume like he expected, quite oppositely, he blinks, then grins so wide it should hurt. You mean the great and cool Nawaki Senju? He puffed his chest and Makoto scoffed. But that's not fair then. I don't know who you are. Added Adebayo behind that, and Makoto could suddenly understand why Tsunade said that Naruto is similar with Nawaki. Their speech tone, cheerful, a bit flippant, noisy, is certainly similar. You can call me Makoto. No family names. The raven-haired hums and gives a half-hearted nod, I'm an orphan. Silence reigned the clearing. When his blue eyes looks at Nawaki's golden brownish ones, he's almost jerked because the intense stare the boy gives to him. Now Nawaki must have a misunderstanding. Because Makoto is sure he sees some misleading assumptions in those eyes. Makoto frowns, but before H could voice his complaint, Nawaki grinned and began a long story of his life, many good things in villages, and a little bit of his family. Makoto listens, but he is so lost. Like why even the heck did this kid tell him that? Is he trying to cheer him up? That's actually sweet, but Makoto isn't sure if this is even the right way to do that. Still, he listens carefully and smiles every time Nawaki grins or laughs. Also he puts his thought every now and then, because he doesn't have the heart to ignore someone like Nawaki. He's so bright. Oh, and my one-san. Nawaki's voice died down, and with grim realization, Makoto realized he must have talked about Tsunade. Tsunade-sama, right. What happened? He asked, part curiosity and part worried. Tsunade is important for the plot, and there's no guarantee that his lifetime will be the exact same like Naruto plot. Nawaki being here is a proof enough. Nawaki nodded slowly, and his smile turned strained as he pulls out a green crystal necklace out of his scarf. Makoto's blue eyes widen to realize that it's the cursed not cursed necklace of the first Hokage. My one-san is so strong. Even when she's clearly sad because anyway, I really want to be strong like her. And I will be the greatest Hokage one day. Makoto looks away because he knows Nawaki would die sooner than later, that this bright kid would leave a scar in Tsunade's self so hard that it is really just a vain dream. He pulled out some grass with a frown because even if he just met Nawaki half an hour ago, a kid this bright and kind shouldn't be always plucks the most beautiful, brightest flowers, he murmured, because a memory of his previous life just popped of random internet, and what is internet again? Quotes about flowers and dead people. What? Nawaki asks, and Makoto throws the grasses in his hands away. Listen, Nawaki. I have a story for you, too. It's from an orphan kid like me, and they said it's a real story from one of Ninja Village. Not Konoha, surely. The younger perks up, clearly interested, and Makoto allows a ghost of smile curved on his lips before he began his story. If there's a little thing he could do to help then, this probably it. He begins telling a story about a ninja sibling. The strong sister loved her brother and her lover dearly, but then her lover died in war, and even though she's a formidable medic ninja, shortly after, her little brother died too, with nothing she can do to help him. And so, she left her village. She's sworn herself to never go back to the village, because she thinks the village is cursed. Yes, he's telling a story about Tsunade, and carefully, he watches as Nawaki's expression grew paler by the seconds. Nawaki, Makoto said, and he lets his face settles a solemn expression, letting the silence reign with the wind playing his bang softly, grow stronger. A pause, as he observed how Nawaki gulped but doesn't break eye contact from him. For a ninja to leave their village, it could be considered an act of treason. And living alone constantly haunted by guilt, it's never a pleasant feeling. The sister might already dead now, with her village marked her a missing nin. Then he broke the eye contact and looks up to the sky. If you don't want that happen to your sister, then you have to grow stronger. Makoto gets up and flashed a smile to Nawaki's wide-eyed yet odd expression. Be strong and survive, Nawaki. Makoto huffs when Nawaki looks like he won't be moving soon, and he jumps up to a nearby tree and make his way down the monument. He sees Nawaki trains, sometimes, when he had the time to drop around some training grounds. Nawaki was full of bruises, and he's ready to cry or lay down to rest, but no, he gets up again and again and again and Makoto smiles. The kid trains so hard, it makes pleased him. Maybe he could survive this time. 2 weeks after, he heard the death of Nawaki Senju, a newly genin, his team was slaughtered, and apparently him and his sensei are the ones who made it back to the village. A revenge from the war, it seems. Peace has not fully gained, many bitter ninjas out there who seeks revenge. But even then, with the poison and late medical attention, Nawaki Senju passed away, and Makoto blinks the tears away from his eyes. It's no good to break down, just because he heard a gossip while he's working, anyway. And if his smile doesn't reach his eyes and he gripped the plates a little too tight, Makoto is grateful that the old lady owner is kind enough not to say anything about it. One-E-san, Nawaki. Stay, wake up. You hear me? Stay with me. It's okay, One-E-san, don't cry please. Just a little bit more. You can do it, Nawaki. Promise me don't ever leave the village, Onasan. What are you talking about, Nawaki? Wake up. Promise me please. Yes. Yes, I promise. But you have to stay with me, Nawaki. Just a bit more. It's okay, Onasan, thank you, Nawaki. No. No. Please. Nawaki, wake up. Please. Nawaki Senju, Makoto breathed lowly as he looks at the newly tombstone in front of him, gritted his teeth inside his thin lips, rest in peace. Someone has been following him. Makoto knows it. It's a feeling which he always feel in his lessons with Tsukumo. The one when the White Fang hides and prepares for an ambush attack. It makes Makoto more uneasy and itchy than usual because it's not had a compound and he still could feel it now. He has been walking around the village for an hour now and the feeling still hasn't gone. At first, he paid no mind as it would be his own paranoia, but now he's sure some little shit has been following him. Steeled his resolve, Makoto quickly turns to a corner and silently jumps over a fence and up to a tree. Gracefully perched himself so whoever it is following him would not be able to spot him easily. Makoto narrowed his eyes to a blur of black and he's torn between snickering to see little Obito Ichiha's confused yet shocked expression or jump down and pummel the kid's head for following him. What the hell does vengeful I can't move on villain to be wants by following him anyway? Sighing quietly, Makoto dropped down right in front of the kid, then amused as he sees Obito got knocked back, fell down butt first with a squeaky yelp. Why are you following me, kid? Little Obito gasped in an exaggerated manner. You knew it was me. And he snapped, with more squeaky high-pitched children voice which makes Makoto frown, and I'm not a kid. Makoto kneels down to match the kids and scowled, completely ignoring the telltale of tears in the kid's eyes. Not too loud, you midget. I am not a midget. Aha! His voice starts to sound shaky, obviously trying to hold back crying. Still, Obito listens to him and his volume decreased for a bit. Makoto tilted his head, observing the kid's chubby face, and wonder how did this snot-nosed midget become a vicious scarred-face villain in the future. What makes this innocent kid unable to move on? Seriously, destroying the world because the world kills his puppy crush is just plain stupid. What, you can't get any other girls? Or is Madara's influence that strong? You have a new goggles. Makoto says, and Obito blinks, confused to the sudden topic change. The teen huffed and bring up his hand to ruffle little Obito's short black hair. In any way, if Makoto could change Obito and prevent the war early hell, what is he thinking? He's not here to change the plot. He's here to protect his family and to survive, nothing more, nothing less. Changing plot has never been in his agenda before, and he's not going to add that now. Beady black eyes meet sapphire blue, Obito blinks owlishly, and Makoto can't help but to ruffle his hair more, grinning as he watches Obito protests and trying to swat his hand away from his head. Eventually, Makoto lets his hand go and raised an eyebrow to Obito's heated glare. Sadly, the glare lost its scary effect by those tears and snot. I don't know what you want, kid, seriously, if you want to show off your orange goggles, well I like it alright. Makoto jovially says, but if you don't have anything more to say, don't follow me. Makoto turned away and jumps to a nearby tree. Truthfully, he doesn't want to get involved to anything with Obito Uchiha. Enemy, maybe, when that little shit used an orange spiraled mask and tried to kill Minato. Oh, Makoto is so going to try to pummel Obito in battlefield if that shit dared to even scratch his little baby brother. But then, this Obito is not that Obito. Not yet, at least. And by a single glance Makoto already knows that Obito doesn't have that much friends for a little boy. Hell, does his parents even care for him? His little brother instinct is practically screaming to care for the boy. He is a pretty sensitive and observant person, and Makoto is proud with that. He could see how Obito's eyes seems to lit with innocence, wonder, and even happiness when he began ruffling the kid's head for the first time. If the kid is attached to him, Makoto really has much to think now. Makoto is half convinced that the universe hates him. Yesterday, after 2 days of brainstorming possibilities of changing plot by being close to Obito, he just decided that he won't get close to Obito anymore. Obito is just a pawn, and if he could somehow keep Obito from Madara, then Madara would try to search for another pawn, and then he doesn't know what the cost of that. He doesn't know what the war will be. The casualties. Thinking about that already makes him anxious and guilty. But then, here the kid is, in the middle of the night, alone, and sobbing right under a street lamp. Makoto has just finished his full-day shift and was walking down when he found the Uchiha. Seeing the kid crying like this, though. Obviously Makoto could not leave him alone. Annoyed he might be, he still kneels down and ruffles the kid's head softly. An action which quickly gains a reaction as Obito lifts up his head from behind his knees and meets Makoto's eyes. Odd, how the hell did Obito manage to look disgusting yet broken at the same time? And he's just a little kid, too. Makoto pulls his scarf and wipes the snot and tears away from his face, completely aware of the familiar wonder and telltale of happiness in Obito's widened eyes. Do you want to go home? His voice is soft, almost a whisper, yet still sound firm, and in a quiet dark street like this, anyone could hear it from meters away. The question must trigger something as Obito's tears began to pool and flow down, his sobs audible again, yet he firmly shakes his head. Makoto sighs again, and he gets up while offering a hand to little Obito. No more hesitant, Obito gripped Makoto's palm tightly as he gets up and they began their way to the Namika's compound. As he listens to their constant steps and occasional sob from Obito, Makoto can help but thinks, man, this would be a long night. Makoto ushered Chibi Obito to sits on the sofa and quickly makes 2 cups of hot chocolate. This is similar with how he handles Kushina and his clan problems, and hopefully this would suffice to calm the kid down to sleep. Whatever it is could wait tomorrow as Makoto just wants to sleep after his job today. Too many to think about, too little time, it annoys him, and controlling his emotion in check is what exhausts him the most. He sets the cups on the table, and he takes out a book about summons creatures out from the cabinet. A sip from his cup and all that could be heard is the ticking clock and the sound of paper flipping. Thankfully, Chibi Obito seems to be entranced by the sweet smell of hot chocolate, he doesn't even hesitate or suspicious like before. Makoto lets out a sigh when, on page 116 in his book, Mini Obito fell asleep on the sofa. His little body fits perfectly on the sofa, and Makoto is thankful that he doesn't have to move Mini Obito anywhere. It could wake him up and disturb his sleep, so his hands moves to take empty cups and put them in the kitchen. Makoto comes back to the living room with 2 blankets, one he spreads on Mini Obito's bed and the other one. The older Namek is laid down on the sofa across where Obito is, and he spreads the blanket to cover his own body. He doesn't want to leave Obito alone, doesn't want to imagine how it feels to wake up alone in a strange place for a little kid would feel. There would be no going back, Makoto realized, there is no way Obito would leave him alone from now on, and he doesn't know how it would affect the plot the world's survival in general. It should be hard to sleep with all the thoughts plaguing his mind, but Makoto finds himself sinks back to sleep quicker than he expected. Because of Tsukumo's harsh training, Makoto is proud to say that he will automatically wakes up at 6 hours sharp. Of course, by then Obito hasn't woke up, and quietly, Makoto begins his morning routine. The only different thing is how he cooks breakfast for two now that Obito is here. Just a simple omelette and bacon, the only food he remembered from his previous life this far, is obviously enough. He heard a distant thud from the living room right after he finished cooking, and he enters the living room to see Mini Obito tangled in his own blanket, currently in a form of a caterpillar, fell down on the floor. He tried to wiggle out of the way, but his body hits the table instead, causing him to yelp. Makoto snickers. How the hell did this turn out to be that scary villain again? Makoto simply hauls the chibi's body up easily to the sofa. Along the way the blanket also fell down, and he's now staring amusedly at Mini Obito's "I'm a deer caught in light" expression. The chibi opens his mouth to ask something or to apologize, but Makoto cuts him with a swift, "Come on, breakfast first." Hesitantly, Chibi Obito plops himself down across Makoto and slowly eats the breakfast which served in front of him. The Namikaze's blue eyes subtly observe the kid as he munched the food, and he has to suppress his grin when he sees Obito's shocked yet teary face. This is so good." "Well, yes, of course it is." Makoto nods, with no small amount of proudness narcissism. "Now go finish it." Obito seems to take that positively as he digs in, quickly munching and swallowing, finishing his breakfast in no time. Then it was quiet moment, where Makoto sips his tea and Mini Obito seems content to swing his feet in the air while drinking his water. But well, of course it won't stay that long. Makoto puts down his tea and stares straight to Obito's black eyes. "Would you tell me why you ran away from your home?" His voice is soft and the tone is even kind, but even then Obito's body stiffens and he widens his eyes in surprise. Mini Obito looks down then, a clear troubled expression on his countenance. Soon accompanied by tears which threatens to spill away from behind his orange goggles. "Should I accompany you back home?" Chibi Obito lifts up his head, blinking dumbly, then shakes his head. Makoto nods and he picks up his cup to sip his tea. If the kid feels like he's fine to come home alone, then Makoto wouldn't stop him. And he wouldn't pry if he's still not ready to say what happened. Makoto waits, as the kid gets down from his chair, he waits for the kid to step out. The door's already open by the way, and the sun's hourly shine brightly. But Mini Obito fidgets on his place and Makoto raised an eyebrow. "What is it, brat?" That nickname successfully takes Obito's nervousness away, as he scowls and says, "I'm not a brat." "What is it, midget?" Obito looks ready to strangle someone or throw his hands frustratedly, and coming from a 5-year-old kid, it is pretty funny and amusing to watch. "Tell me your name." Mini Obito gritted out, glaring. Makoto blinks. "Excuse me? I didn't know your name." Mini Obito says, looking on the verge of tears, because, Makoto realized, he's embarrassed. "You," Makoto says, incredulity in his tone, "you're crying because you're embarrassed." "What of it?" The Farrakha scowl lost its effect because of the tears, like always. Makoto can't help but laugh. Oh, now he gets why Kakashi seems to be annoyed to crybaby Obito. Well, it is kinda annoying but funny still. "What's so funny?" Obito's screech only makes Makoto laugh harder. "No," Makoto coughed, trying to regain his bearing and to shove the slight regret of not being able to take a photo of that embarrassed crying face. "No, nothing. Alright, midget, I'm sorry." "Stop calling me midget." "Alright, brat, I'm sorry." Makoto repeated and Obito looks scandalized while Makoto grins. "The right phrase is, what's your name, Ani-san?" Makoto jovially chimed, imitating a kid's high-pitched voice, smiling, "And I'll answer, my name is Makoto, brat." For a moment, Makoto actually thinks that maybe he broke Chibi Obito because said Chibi is looking at him with those intense eyes without moving and blinking. "Makoto," he said, almost breathless. Makoto's grins widened as he tilted his head. "That's Makoto Aniasan for you, midget." This time, instead of scowling or correct the older male, Obito grinned. Makoto was caught off guard with that grin. It was so bright and vibrant, and Makoto thinks he should probably shield his eyes from the brightness before it could blind him. Seriously, a grin that bright should be illegal. "Go home, now," Makoto said, and Obito dutifully nods before he trotted out of Namika's compound, leaving the older twin to ponder and perhaps reset his whole plan. Makoto Niasen. Makoto Niasen. One black-haired Makoto Namika is almost face-faulted when he hears that screech from outside of barbecue shop. All guests in the shop immediately has their eyes on said waiter, and with a rather stiff bow, he walked inside the shop, flashes an apologetic look to lady owner's understanding smile, and slammed the back door violently. "Rat!" Makoto hollered, and one Obito Uchiha yelped from behind bushes. Quickly, the Namikaze sprinted before Mini Obito could run, and he holds the kid's head in his palm. "What did I say about annoying me in one of my shift, midget? Do you want to die? Or are you sick with my cooking? Very well, I will no longer cook for you, you little bee." "I'm sorry." Mini Obito screeched, teary-eyed, "Please let me taste your cooking still, Ani-sama." Makoto huffed, he lets go the kid's head, then hit it with his fist. "Now what do you want, brat? You gotta tell me a good reason or else." He is branding his fist to Mini Obito, who is nursing his head with tears and snot on his face. But then, instead of telling a stupid reason like a cat leads me here or I was lost on the road of life, then I end up here or many other stupid reasons, which makes Makoto wants to pummel this little midget to the ground. Obito looks away. His face contorted to a scowl frown pout which he usually use when he ran away from home. Makoto sighed, then combs one of his side face bang back. Obito has somehow become a normal occurrence in Makoto's life. The kid always have time to visit him. It began with a few times a week, but then along the way which Makoto doesn't remember how Obito visits him every day. The little shit eventually follows him to where he works and even had a compound though he doesn't dare to get close to the ladder. Which Makoto appreciates very much because he doesn't afford any distraction if he's training with Tsukumo-sensei. Else he got bruises everywhere. The little menace likes to appear out of nowhere, sometimes he's content to watch Makoto reads, then fall asleep while leaning to him, sometimes they went out to buy snacks, sometimes he even stays for lunch. The other times, however, when Mini Obito is in a foul mood and ran away from his home. Like this one time. Okay, brat. Come here. Let's get you dango or something. Quickly perked up, Mini Obito wipes tears and snot away from his face using his sleeve and quickly snatched Makoto's hand in his hand. I want ice cream today. Cheeky brat. Makoto smiled in amusement. Fine. Lead the way. Obito grinned more and he clumsily pulls Makoto through the streets. Makoto have to apologize here and there because the little menace keep bumping into things and people. But well, he's excited and maybe that's good. Anything to take that gloomy face off of his chubby 5-year-old Uchiha face. They bought ice creams and are now currently munching their own ice cream under a canopy of a tree's shadow, sitting side by side. Mini Obito tugs his hand and Makoto calmly lowers his hand so he could munch Makoto's chocolate mint flavored ice cream. After Obito bite his ice cream, Obito holds up his ice strawberry flavored ice cream and Makoto calmly takes a bite. Makoto thinks they synchronize pretty well. Not as well as him and his twin brother obviously, but still a non-short period too. It tastes weird. Obito says. It's a flavor for adults. Makoto replies. Chocolate is for everyone. Did I say anything about chocolate? Makoto grinned to Obito's chubby disgruntled face. So, Makoto began, enjoying the soft wind around the clearing, are you going to tell me why you ran away this time? Obito never told anyone, Makoto is sure of that. It has been a little over 1 month and the kids still haven't told him what's up with his home. Makoto would never pry too much, but really, as much as Makoto denies it, Obito has become a family for him and he wants nothing more than to help his family as much as he can. Makoto doesn't even look at Obito, he doesn't know what kind of expression the kid uses now and in the silence, Makoto thinks, maybe not this time. Maybe Obito needs more time and Makoto will wait more, it's fine. But then, he hears Obito's shaky voice, my mom and dad always fight each other. Usually my grandmother is there to take me but she's sick and it's getting worse. Well, this surely is not in Naruto's plot. Clearly the author doesn't write Obito's family background, so this is new to him. She was having a coughing fit but asleep when I left. But my mom and dad started it again. Obito is obviously sobbing now. Fortunately their ice cream already almost finished, so Makoto is sure it won't be that messy. And I haven't my Sharingan haven't activated even though the others are already active. They said I'm useless and I shouldn't exist. Mini Obito stopped and Makoto could hear rustles of his sleeve, wiping his tears and snot, even if his blue eyes completely looks up. But anyway, the grannies are always nice. Like Gran when she smiles. Well, that was unexpected, alright. So the reason why Obito seems content on helping grannies and runs around Konoha. That's why his eyes always lift up in happiness when Makoto ruffles his head. His parents are probably stick-up asses typical Uchiha and arranged married perhaps. Both parties are not willing to give any love to their spawn. They keep the blood purity, sacrifice a kid's mental health, huh? Makoto turned his head and stared straight at Obito's black eyes. Of course you are not useless, you brat. Who's going to taste my cooking if you don't exist? My good cooking will go to waste. Who will help those elders? Clearly, no 5-year-old midget who are more useful than you. Though, I admit, your lying skills makes me wants to strangle you, but he was cut short when Mini Obito's hand circled on his waist and said kid already throws himself to cling on Makoto's body. In other case, Makoto would have snapped and slammed the brat down while scolding about ice cream, tears, and snot stains on his shirt. But in this case, Obito's body is trembling violently and he already has his goggles on his forehead. He doesn't have any heart to stop Obito from breaking down. Kids need it so much. How the hell did he always smile for what, years? With that kind of household. He's crazy strong. So Makoto do the only thing he could, he rubs Obito's back to calm him down and ruffles his black hair gently. Minato has never been this clingy before, even if Minato is his baby brother. Maybe he was, back when they are 3 years old or 4 years old. but never actually slam himself on Makoto's body and cry like this. A change of pace is kinda nice. As he closed his eyes, Makoto remembered a young boy with pale skin and black hair, smiling softly to him. He thinks of what is his little brother in his previous life doing right now. Contrary to popular belief, Kushina Uzumaki is actually a very ambitious person. Many thinks that she takes her genius on ceiling for granted, but no, it's not because the fact that he's the princess of Yuzu or because she's talented. She never believed the words of genius or talented from anyone, anyway. Sometimes, maybe, but mostly, she ignores them. It's because she always gets what we wants, one way or another. If Kushina sets her mind on something, then she would reach it no matter how hard it is. Mind you, she works hard to reach it. Now, her ambition is to look for any way to increase chakra through Fuinjutsu. The reason? Of course, none other than Makoto Namikaze. Kushina gives up her time to visit said friend for the sake of reading, burying herself behind piles and piles of book from Mito Grandma's library. She only stops to eat, sleep, and a little walk around Mito Granny's house. Other than that, she only reads, write, and then asks for something she doesn't understand to her granny, and then reads again, write, repeat. So when she finally gets something out after 2-3 months of study, she's very excited to show her scrolls to the Namikaze. Kushina almost skipped her steps as he gets closer and closer to the Namikaze compound. The redhead slammed the front door open while excitedly hollers, "Bro, calm." But to her disappointment, Makoto doesn't appear on the living room like she expected. Not even the loud thud sounds which coming from the scrolls hitting the table makes the Namikaze appears. Curious, Kushina steps inside the house, frowning wearily in her every steps. "Bro, calm." The house is unusually quiet. Too quiet even. But the door is not locked, so Makoto must be inside. Maybe he's asleep. The thought of entering a boy's room makes her face flush, but she quickly shoved those thoughts away. It's still noon. What a lazy bum if he's asleep at this hour. Renewing her resolve, that is, to wake Makoto, and drags his lazy ass up and be ready to get impressed by Uzumaki Kushina's smartness, Kushina slams the bedroom doors open. She's ready to yell, but then, she stopped. Stepping closer to one bed, he could see that Makoto is not sleeping alone. There's a small kid being hugged by Makoto, curling himself close to the teen. Kushina's brain circuit instantly stopped. How dare he? While Kushina sweats blood and work tooth and nail for his sake, Makoto is Upadafi Ilii. To wake up with an wild angry Kushina hollering at you, throwing punch and kicks while furiously ranting about how ungrateful he is, Makoto is very confused. And a little bit scared. Why is Kushina so angry with him? What did he do? What did he do wrong? He really should thank Tsukumo-sensei's pranks. His sensei is vicious as he's childish, dumping glitters, cold water, and dry leaves when he's asleep and expect him to dodge them, so he's able to dodge Kushina's fist, which quickly explodes his pillow where his head was. Amazingly, Mini Obito is able to stay asleep with all the screeching and all sounds of furniture breaking. Is Mini Obito deaf or what? What the hell, tomato? That nickname gets a reaction alright, more furious Kushina that is. Makoto dodges another kick. He really wishes he has a Pokeball so Kushina could get contained easily. What's the name of that game again? Pokemon? Seriously, stop. You're thrashing my house, you crazy woman. No, Makoto is not screeching, mind you. But Kushina still continues, and then Makoto realized, why did he only dodge all this time? He's not his polite sweet little brother Minato, damn it. Kushina cannot thrash him, the prodigy student of Taijutsu. Stealing his resolve and regain his footing, Makoto scowls as he redirected Kushina's fist away and grips her hand, then flipped the red head down. Before Kushina could register what happened, he already trapped Kushina's waist with his ankles and hold both of her hands in his hands on the floor. Kushina glared. Makoto glared back, completely unaware if their faces are drawing closer in the glaring match. Just then, Makoto could hear ruffles from his bed, and one chibi Obito sits up on his bed. Makoto and Kushina turned his head to see Obito's eyes widen so comical big upon meeting theirs. It was a very awkward and tense moments when they look at each other for a seemingly long silent time. Makoto Niasen, Obito says awkwardly, shuffling down as he closed his eyes and side steps to the door, still closing his eyes. Makoto would have laughed if the situation is not so dire and he's not confused why his new little brother is doing that. But then, right after Obito gets out of the room, his head peaked and he makes a thumbs up, make her pregnant, Niasen. The fuck? You little come back here, brat. The little shit has the ball to ran away after he said that. Makoto swears he's going to pummel that little shit when he meets him, doesn't cook his favorite food, ignores him for weeks, and you, oh right, Kushina. Makoto looks down to the redeed, glaring, what have you been teaching him, you pervert pedophile? This time, it's Makoto who doesn't realize what happened as the world tilted upside down for him. Oh god, when did this has become his life? 15 years old. Ready, Minato? Minato looks up to meet Jiraiya-sensei's eyes, and he smiled. I always am, sensei. The blonde grinned. I expect you are too. Or I'll leave you behind. Then Minato disappeared in a swirling leaves, and Jiraiya barks out a laugh before he, too, disappeared in a swirling leaves. The teacher and student duo is keeping up a steady pace as they jumped from one tree branch to another, make their way to Konoha. This your brother, aren't you? Jiraiya said, one eyebrow raised in amused teasing. Minato spared a closed-eye smile for his sensei. My late mother once told us, twins can't be far from each other for too long. Jiraiya huffed an amused smile, but doesn't comment any further. After all, he missed his Konoha too. The first thing Makoto noticed when he stepped to the Haddock compound was, the air is different. It's a feeling he couldn't explain, like an itch but not an itch. Like there's something horribly wrong, but no matter how Makoto squints his eyes to observe and look for traps, never beneath Tsukumo-sensei to put a bag of horseshit to swing at his face or something, and yet he couldn't find anything. So this left Makoto on a predicament where he stood on the Heikate compound's lawn, shifting uncomfortably as he gazed at the traditional Japanese-style house. But if there are nothing he observed maybe. Makoto closed his eyes and tried to feel his faint feeling of chakra inside his body. Meditation proved to be useful to even be more sensitive of his chakra core and Tenketsu, after all. Surprisingly, his chakra felt brighter and denser this time, and with it he found something nagging and quickly dispatched it with a hand sign and a whisper of Kai. When Makoto opened his eyes again, he was greeted by a mini Tsukumo-sensei. Makoto gaped. There's no other way to say it, dignity be damned, his jaws are hanging open. It's a mini Tsukumo-sensei. With a mask on his face. The scenery of small, white-haired kids standing in front of the open shoji door, looking at him blankly, left Makoto reeling and a little more than nauseous. What the fuck is happening? Took you long enough. The child said, his tone is very bland and very unimpressed, a clear contrast with his high-pitched voice. That wasn't very cute at all. A small part of Makoto's mind thinks between his nausea and attempts at regulated breathing. Ka-san and Tu-san is waiting in the dining room. And with that, said child turns away, disappeared in the house and left Makoto alone. Still reeling. That was Haddock Kakashi. Oh god, he forgot about Haddock Kakashi. Oh sage, he forgot about Haddock Kakashi. How in the seven hells did he manage to forget? But he shouldn't, though how could he forgot about a canon, strong player of the game. The sensei of Team 7, literally the guy whose best friend went nuts. He even get flashback episodes and a Gaiden on his own. His memory isn't that blotchy because of reincarnation, is it? Come on, Makoto knew he retained his meticulousness even in this body. How the fuck is this happening? Well, he meant. A war was technically postponed for his and Obito sob story. She idiot, you fucking idiot, an X-class dumbfuck, seaweed of a brain, morons of morons, Makoto cursed in his mind, dread pooling in his stomach, doubling his nausea. How did he become this moron? He took few deep breaths, and then more. Calm down Makoto, calm down. Think clearly. The problem is not what had happened, but how he proceed from now on. Or, Makoto thought, his mind not letting the how, what and why did he forget. Actually he wasn't a moron, because he shared a gene pool with Minato, and Minato is a certified genius. So it's just that Tsukumo-sensei is a bastard and he did something with his head. Damn it, why did he even pick this psycho to be his sensei again? Ah yes, because the other choice is even more psycho. With snakes. You. Nursing his grudge in his head and mind, Makoto stepped to the Haddock house, planning his revenge as he walked. It turns out that Makoto could inflict the fear of God, sage. On two overgrown children, not adults, damn it, in front of him by a single ominous word and even more ominous, dark-colored anime clouds around him. With a hiss to explain. Both Haddock matriarch and patriarch sheepishly explained that they had put a complex genjutsu around the house which made Haddock Kakashi, using seals, damn it, seals, their 3-year-old son, went unnoticed by him and effectively hidden. You see, Makoto-kun, this technique saves up time. We both noticed that your chakra pool is simply not enough for second stage of your training. This genjutsu serves as a parameter of your chakra pool and chakra control. By inflicting genjutsu on your chakra, the disruptions will force your pool to grow even faster than normal, among other things. Your chakra core would then be forced to thaw an outside chakra while at the same time feed by the same chakra, and in your case for years. Although since you're not here every day, per se, and this is such a subtle genjutsu, it's to be expected it took years. And because it's Miss Haddock who explained, with gentle tone and even gentler sheepish smile, Makoto just can't bring himself to glare too hard. Damn it. And besides Tsukumo-sensei though, was a different matter. As soon as the man spoke, Makoto's glare intensified almost tenfold that the man had to pause and squirm for a bit before he continued, don't you think the reward is worth it? I mean, you finally meet my beloved cute son. See, you both could train together from now on. And do you know that Kakashi would enter the academy this year? How I love to see you both play together. Also. Do you know Kashi-chan here always stand on the front door to watch you every time you come out, he's waiting for you to Kakashi. And honestly, Makoto could totally relate on Kakashi's long-suffering look when Tsukumo hugged him and pulled him close while gushing about Kakashi. Poor kid with an idiot of a dad. Makoto shook his head. It's hard to stay angry when the man is currently gushing about his exasperated, embarrassed son in his hands. Well said, son, squirm like it, Sundere albino pink-cheeked worm in his hands. Tsukumo totally deserves those smacks from Kakashi. Miss Haddock giggled then, and Makoto's attention directed to her. Please help me prepare lunch, Makoto-chan. I'm sure cooking will help you feel better, nah. Sure, auntie. But not Chan, please. Another giggle. Sure. Cooking did make him feel better. Turning his attention to methodically chopping onions and meat did turn his mind away from the betrayal of his mentors. And along with calmness, he could think more clearly now. As if his memories was returned again, like the first time he realized he was not of this world. Back when he was 3, he could remember things he didn't before. Like how little Kakashi has actually been there all this time. Little Kakashi has watched him train and embarrass himself like a fool all this time, sitting on the Ingawa while he overlooked the garden where Tsukumo trained him. Various memories of him simply avoided Kakashi for no reason, like avoiding a cat or a vase which was suddenly appeared, the Jinjutsu's will. The feeling of being watched every time he walked along Haddock Estate's corridor, all this time. It was all Kakashi. He was always there. And for that, he promised himself revenge on 2 big children of Haddock family. The lunch itself was uneventful. Makoto formally introduces himself as Tsukumo's protege, and little Kakashi has stared. For a long time. With adorably cute yet frighteningly focused genius eyes of his. Makoto had to hold himself on his chair not to squirm and keep on his friendly smile. The child is a prodigy and it shows. Then little Kakashi huffed, and maybe he deemed Makoto pass his little test of worthiness, for Makoto had offered to take his share of lunch from the steaming pot of soup, and the child had gratefully accepted the bowl from him. Makoto pointedly ignored how the 2 adults children seems to be beaming at that. A week later, Makoto made his revenge. The Namikaze moved everything in Auntie Haddock's room and the kitchen 2 inches to the left, with reluctant Kakashi's help. He also put his experimental electricity shock seals on every doorknobs in Haddock Estate. He modified this so that it only activated with Auntie or Sensei's chakra signature, not Kakashi's. They won't explode. Probably. They're experimental for a reason. He winked to Chibi Kakashi's light odd look as the seal transferred from paper to doorknob and disappeared to invisibility. Also, he puts glitter-releasing seals on bathroom and corridor ceilings. Suffice to say, little Kakashi is conflicted on wanting to whack him for pranking his parents or laughing with him. He finally chose both though, and Makoto snickered as he ruffled Kakashi's hair, making the child squawk. Fortunately he is saved from scolding from both Haddocks by a frog summon, and swiftly he ran back home to prepare a feast. Minato is really godsend. And Minato will be home. 2 days from now. He is so anxious. But ready or not, he is more than ready to meet his twin back. I'm home. Warily, Minato stepped inside the Namikaze residence. The house was very quiet. And that was unusual, considering he was sure he gave Kushina his house's spare key to keep Makoto company. Besides, he did send his toad summon to tell Makoto he will arrive today. He was half expecting his house to be a mess by how the both fights all the time, especially about seals, but this is. Abruptly, confetti was released from up the ceiling, and he was covered by ribbons and colorful papers. Startled. Welcome home. Was the sound of yet another confetti exploding right in front of his face. This time Minato had to close his eyes with a smile on his face and a distinctive girl voice yelling. And then he has an armful of Kushina Uzumaki hugging him tightly, making him laugh as he hugged back just as tightly. Minato. The redhead Uzumaki said, rocking them both left and right in her excited hug. Thanks Sage, you're finally back. I've missed you. Your stupid ugly twin drives me crazy. She pulled back with a grin, and Minato had to grin back, just as wide. She's even more beautiful than he remembered now, as she has grown. Her red hair full past her back, freely falling around her beautifully and a hairpin on her head. She is using a short-sleeved red shirt, Kai Pao style, and ankle-length pants, black-colored, a white knee protector on one of her ankle. She is still exuberant and bright, every bit of summer personified as he remembered her to be. I miss you too. I thought you both drive each other crazy. The Uzumaki huffed, and a beginning of an upset pout on her face appeared. Minato knew she must have had a fight recently with Makoto. She grabbed his hand and began pulling him inside. Come in then, that dumb brokem is inside, bet he'd cry when he see you. Just then, someone cleared their throat from behind. Right. He forgot he invited Jiraiya-sensei here. Totally not Kushina's fault as she peeked around Minato curiously. Jiraiya raised an eyebrow, a knowing smirk on his face as he glanced at Minato, which he pointedly ignored. Uzumaki Haim, his sensei said, totally a gentleman and not a pervert he truly is. I hope I'm not intruding. Of course not, Jiraiya-san. Come in, make yourself at home Tebane. Minato raised an eyebrow at that and Kushina just grins more. Which house is this again? But as Jiraiya stepped inside, Kushina went to his sensei and actually gave him a warm hug, with Jiraiya returned it with a grin. Kushina led them to the dining room, which, to Minato's surprise, was already ready for dinner. It was a feast too, Minato saw with awe. Miso soup, grilled fish, vegetables, and grilled chicken in the middle. Minato was about to ask who cooked all of this, and he knew all of these are cooked as they are still warm. But Kushina made a beeline to the kitchen, hollering all the way, "Bro, calm. Come out, your brother and his sensei is here." There was a string of curses right after Kushina's holler from the kitchen, along with sounds some things clattered down. Kushina's cackles could be heard after, and an argument soon broke out, trading amused look with his sensei they both could hear. "You crazy woman. An idiot broke him. And hurry up. Before out. Out." As he sat down on one of the chairs. Jiraiya-sensei followed suit, taking a chair beside him. Walked out from the corridor connecting to their traditional open-door kitchen is his twin brother, Kushina, trailing behind him with a smug look. And it was his brother. He has a disgruntled expression on his face he usually have when an argument broke with Kushina 3 years ago. Makoto's eyes are blue, darker than before, and he has gained a slight tan, making Minato the paler between the two. He is taller, too, evidently muscled despite his civilian status. And his hair is the same as his. Not black, not smelling of hair dye, it was the sunny blonde, same color, same style. It was his brother, his mirror image, a half of each, half of his self, as their mother would say. Minato connected eyes with his brother and he didn't know when he had stood up, didn't care to remember who approached first. The twins have each other in tight warm hugs and Minato's world has once again become adjusted its axis to its right place. He had returned. "I'm sorry," his brother's hug seemed to say, "I miss you so much, I love you, I'm so sorry, I'm glad you've returned." And Minato replied just as fiercely, "It's alright, I miss you too, I love you, I forgive you, don't shut me out again, please explain to me." By his brother's nod on his shoulder, he had understood. Minato would wait for that talk. Both of them did not notice how Kushina and Jiraiya looked at them both fondly. It's nice to see his student become more alive than he ever be in their travels, Jiraiya thinks. Kushina quietly wiped a stray tear from her eyes. Why is this so touching suddenly, she thinks. Maybe because Makoto has dragged himself with tears and blood to train and study to be equal with Minato when he returned, she thinks, idiot moronic broke him, they've always been equal from the start. It was a nice evening, Minato thinks. Best one so far. Kushina bantered with Makoto back and forth, annoyance and fondness in equal measure in both's eyes, with Minato as the voice of reason. Jiraiya-sensei surprisingly managed to keep up with their crazy banter until they talked about Fuinjutsu and it snowballed to a long complicated discussion about chakra-absorbing restorative seal and space-time seals until Kushina hollered at Jiraiya-sensei to go home already. "It's freaking 11 p.m, all of you nerds needs rest, especially both of you. And idiot broke him, I'm taking the guest room. You both rest now." Minato woke up with the smell of something delicious in the kitchen. The travel must be taking a lot of him, he thinks, if his brother woke up earlier than him. After all they usually wake up together. Mentally reviewing his schedule today, his brain confirmed he had no appointment except this afternoon with Sandaime Hokage and Jiraiya to discuss his Jounin exam. Formality at this point, as Jiraiya-sensei has said repeatedly in their spars that he is qualified enough for Jounin, but needed the test all the same. He made his way slowly to the bathroom and then to the dining room. Sitting down to one of the chair, he took the glass of coffee his brother made for him on the table, registering the warmth in his palms. Vaguely, his sleepy mind registered Kushina's hurried gait as she shriek-yell in panics, taking one of available sandwiches on the table before giving Minato a half hug and ran outside with a, late, I'm out Tebane bye. Minato gave a wave slow and sleepy, watching the last of her flowing red hair out of the door. The blonde took a sip. And then another. Regaining his consciousness with each sip of his cough. Finishing his glass, he put down the glass and nodded with a smile to a black-haired kid sitting across him. Wait. Minato did a double take. The kid couldn't be more than 7 stared at him, black innocent eyes wide and surprised. Minato blinked again. The kid is still there. And Minato could do no more than stare back, probably just as dumbfounded as the kid. Just what is Minato supposed to do? He doesn't even know this kid and why is he here? Minato doesn't know how much time has passed by the staring match, but they both snapped to look at Makoto as his older twin stepped out bringing a bento box in his hand. To his slight disappointment, his hair was back to being black, a henge, but a carefully crafted one. Was it a seal? Minato observed how the kid perked up at the sight of his brother, but still silent. Realizing the atmosphere, Makoto looked at the kid in him, then amusedly said, "Obito, this is my younger twin I've told you about, Minato Namikaze. That made him your Minato Nai by default, got it?" Wide-eyed, the kid nodded repeatedly, "And Minato, this is Obito Uchiha, I'm adopting him. Think of him as our family cat." "Hey." The kid Obito yelled, indignant. "I'm not a cat." "I see." Minato said, not seeing at all. He locked eyes with his brother and he could tell that his brother is serious. And that's the scary part, isn't it? Adopting orphan is not unheard, but Uchiha. That just asking for trouble. But Minato looked at Obito then, really looked at him, his small posture, how he yelled, no Uchiha's yell, he knew from personal experience, as he and his brother knew they are, Fugaku, Makoto, beyond such peasant act, apparently, his pale face, his obnoxious goggles, and how skinny he is. This one, Minato could see, is clearly far different. He's a very cute cat, brother. Makoto grinned, glad Minato agreed in his borderline suicidal act of adoption. Obito gaped, apparently conflicted on between happy because Minato had approved of him or yell at the twins because he's called a cat. I know, right? He's here for his bento, because apparently he loved my cooking, whoever doesn't, Minato thinks, and apparently Obito shared the same thought by the glint in his black eyes behind his orange goggles, and I'll be accompanying him to academy as I go to my part-time job. You're in Ninja Academy, Obito-kun. Yeah, I'm graduating next year. He patted his chest, a proud kid he is. The job, then. Minato praised, genuine appreciation in his smile, as long as you work hard and stay true to yourself, I'm sure you'll be a great ninja. Minato doesn't know it was the right thing or not to say because the kid tears up, making Minato briefly panics, even though Makoto just looks at Obito bemusedly. Of course I will. The kid beams up, legs dangling excitedly, I'm the great Uchiha Obito after all. Thank you, Minato Nai. Minato Nai. Now he fully understand why Makoto keep this kid around. Ignoring his twin's amused knowing smirk, Minato reached over to pat and ruffle Obito's hair, making the kid squawk and complain and stop, you're making me shorter. A short breakfast with a bit talk of each of their schedule later, Makoto and Obito was finally going out to their respective shop and academy. Tell me how the meeting goes later. Makoto said, pulling little Obito along with him. I, Minato Nai. The Chibi Uchiha said, waving to Minato with his bento. I will. Have a safe trip ahead, both of you. Minato replied, smiling and waving back to Obito. Alone, Minato returned to his room. He began to check his scrolls, preparing for his meeting. From the meeting, it was decided that Minato's Jounin test was to be held this Saturday, with Haddock Tsukumo and Jiraiya as his examiner. As such, Tsukumo had to be informed first, and it was decided Jiraiya is the one who will inform him. Though Jiraiya had to rely informations he got from his travels to Sandaime-sama. Minato did not have to see their expressions to know what Jiraiya-sensei gave was nothing good at all. He himself knew that the Sannin is telling Sandaime-sama to prepare for another war, as the current peace is very fragile, especially between Konoha and Iwa. With virtually nothing to do, he decided to train and practice his calligraphy and seals. He does want to experiment more on this theoretical space-time seal, after all. The day has gone surprisingly well for Minato, only slight hiccups with his seal research, but then again, what's new about it? Thus it was a surprise that his brother had come home, very late, midnight it was. Minato himself could cook from his travel with Jiraiya, cause he's kinda useless in kitchen, and had prepared a dinner for his twin brother. It was even more of a surprise that Makoto had come home with clear exhaustion, coloring his pale face. He guided his clearly shaken twin brother to sit down on their sofa while he made hot cocoa for both of them. It was clearly very worrying when Minato returned and Makoto had not moved at all from his initial position when he sat down. He stilled on the sofa, body rigid and mind clearly somewhere else. Minato had only seen his twin like this once, back when they were 4, after he asked their parents where exactly do they live. And it was not simple questions asked by 4 years old either, where? Elemental nations are we really in hidden villages? Are you sure mom? Is everyone ninjas? Really? We are in Konohagakure. Gently, Minato put their hot cocoa on the table and squeezed his older twin's shoulder. A relieved sigh escaped his mouth when Makoto responded, barely, he blinked slowly to Minato. He must have tried to smile, but it looks ultimately like a haunted grimace on his twin's face. What happened, Makoto? Slowly, as if his limbs was made of steel and machines, he turned to face Minato beside him. Tsukumo-sensei's wife has fallen ill. Makoto replied, barely a whisper. Minato does not understand what caused his twin to be this shaken. An illness couldn't shake his brother this much. He knew Makoto is close to the Haddocks as he is to Jiraiya, but if it was just an illness, Makoto would have faith. Curious, but it was not important, Minato thinks, his brother would tell when it is the time. Just like other weird things he did all this time, he trusted his brother to hell and back. For now, Minato pulled his brother to a hug. After a few seconds, Makoto sagged, burying his face on his shoulder as his shaking fingers hugged Minato back. Gently, tentatively. Minato heard Makoto took a shuddering deep breath before his hands on Minato's back steadied. He hugged Minato tighter, almost desperately, and Minato simply rubbed his twin's back and stroking his hair, like consoling a child. Makoto did not cry, his twin rarely ever cry. But he is still trembling, he is trying to calm his breathing in Minato's arms. Makoto is always the tough one between both of them, but that's also not exactly true. He's a bleeding heart. Makoto loved and he loved fiercely. It was a blessing and a curse in this world, Minato knew and Makoto knew. But that's alright. Because Minato will be here to pick up his pieces. Always. There's something amusing about the sight of Obito smiling to the air on their dinner table as he swing his legs back and forth. For a supposedly 6 or 7 years old, Minato thinks, Obito's smile is so dreamy and happy that Minato want to laugh at him. He didn't laugh, but it doesn't keep him from smiling in amusement as Obito continued daydreaming and sigh in happiness to thin air from time to time. Ignore him, Makoto said, walked out of corridor and put down a plate of sandwiches. He's, I quote, in love with the most beautiful angel in the entire world. Minato doesn't know if it was Makoto's mocking tone or his voice in general, but Obito broke out of his daydreaming to blush in an impressed tomato-red face and let out a high-pitched indignant oi. Minato raised an eyebrow, who's this lucky angel? Obito failed in stopping Makoto from saying, Rin Nahara. Minato watched, smile widening, as Obito went to punch Makoto's stomach anyways, but his twin was unfazed as he grinned to Minato, you know. Short brown hair, purple face markings, very polite and an angelic ow. You've done it now you brat. Makoto slapped the back of Obito's head half-heartedly as the Uchiha kicked his shin, still blushing. Makoto Nai is hopeless. Obito yelled, the fact that he stood up on his chair is the only thing managed to make him at least on the same height as Makoto, pointing at Makoto's amused smirk. I don't need any opinion from a hopeless wacko like you. Before Makoto could reply with his own snark, Minato cut in with a huff of laugh, hopeless wacko. His distraction worked, Obito turned to face him with a smug smirk on his face, a copy of Makoto's, Minato realized, yeah. Makoto Nai and Kushina-sen was rolling on the floor together the other day, so he was cut off as Makoto tried to grab him, but he jumped down his chair and ran around the table. It was on pure reflex that Minato was able to steady himself and the child who just jumped to his lap and hugs him on the chair like a koala. Makoto snarled and tried to pull Obito back from his collar, but the child just clings harder to Minato's body and, realizing Minato's pain, Makoto stopped pulling. You're such a little shit, Obito. Makoto said, his cheerful tone and bright smile make Minato sweat drops. Obito peeked to see his twin smile, eat and hide his face back on Minato's shoulder. Slowly circling his hands around Obito's body, Minato absent-mindedly said, language. His mind still trying to decipher Obito's rush talk earlier. Minato failed. Makoto scoffed, but he left them alone to sit back on his chair across. Finally processing a bit of the kid's words, Minato opened his mouth, you were rolling on the floor with Kushina. Minato is worried. Makoto and Kushina fought a lot, yes, but they rarely get physical, not for a long time. But if they roll on their floor, it must mean something serious. Or a misunderstanding, considering Kushina's temper. Yeah, Makoto said, his calm face contorting to a scowl as he put his tea down, that crazy woman jumped on me, being a dumbass with her non-existent brain. A misunderstanding then, Minato translated his twin's words in his brain. And one that has been resolved. Obito whispered loudly to his ear, Minato thinks Obito isn't doing it intentionally, he's just that cute, they spent half a day rolling around in a room, Grandma said it's what married people do, it was hard to hold a laugh on Minato's part, Chibi Uchiha face contorting in disgust, but they aren't even dating. He's a hopeless wacko about women, cause he's rude. Makoto scowled harder, but then he made a visible effort to take a deep breath, brat, you're 5. Indignant, Obito stopped clinging and turned to face his twin, I'm 7. I'm going to be 8 in a few months. No, you'll be 6 next year, precisely 10 months from now. Makoto said, deadpan. Brats who can't even count months and talk to their crushes shouldn't comment on adults' affair. Maybe you have to try asking her to play Monopoly with you. What? Or tic-tac-toe, or gave her hot chocolate. Obito looks contemplative on this one, to Minato's silent amusement. Or watching TV. Or play Monopoly. Play tic-tac-toe. Gave her hot chocolate. Play tic-tac. You're messing with me. Obito bursts out, standing on Minato's lap, ignoring his low oof as the Uchiha abruptly stood up and Minato securing his hands around little Obito to prevent him from falling. In an act of his mature age, Makoto stuck out his tongue to Obito and Minato had to pull Obito back to not step on the dinner table. Makoto is right, though. You shouldn't comment on adults' relationship, Obito-kun. Makoto Nai isn't an adult, Obito looked at Minato seriously, only he looks cute instead of serious, no other adult sucks like him. Such sass from 5 years old. What is this I'm hearing? Makoto said, tilting his head as if hearing something, no ice cream for Uchiha Obito for a month. Thank you, voice of Buddha, that is a very good suggestion since he's being such a. I'm sorry Makoto Nai, please forgive me. Obito leaped down from his lap and abruptly clings to Makoto like he did with Minato. Makoto cackled in glee as he pulled Obito's cheeks in opposite directions, playing them like organic clay, while the kid whined and complained, apparently a punishment for his sass. Minato couldn't deny that it's fun to watch Makoto cackles after a long time, it's fun to watch him mess around like this. But, no one has ever been close like this to Makoto. Minato has always been a constant figure of Makoto's attention and cackles in their youth, at least in their house. Makoto was a social butterfly, and Minato doesn't have any trouble with Makoto befriending everyone in their academy, one cackle at a time. And Obito is just a kid who obviously deserves Makoto's attention. Minato can't see his smile, no matter how he complained and cried when Makoto pinched and bullied him like that, but he's jealous. Minato's out of loop in their obvious close relationship, and he's jealous because of it. What, Makoto just cut him off before he went on his training and he got a new brother. That's so stupid, he thinks as he sips his coffee and ignoring his twins and Obito's chatters, while the older of the two mess the younger's hair and push it down. Minato's considered an adult now. Why would he be jealous of Obito? Again, Obito obviously deserved it, he's a troubled child, possibly neglected, that the twins can both see. This jealousy abruptly feels doesn't make sense at all. Yes, they were separated for years, and there's not an hour where Minato doesn't think of Makoto of his travels. But that doesn't mean he can be jealous of this kid, because he took his twins' attention even though he himself barely met Makoto all this week, because Makoto has been busy going around his jobs, the academy, and mostly hospital. Ugh. Such an adult you are, Minato. He sighed to his cup of coffee. That's it. Brothership ended with Uchiha Obito, now Minato is my one and only twin and younger brother. He bit out his automatic "I'm just 5 minutes younger than you" reply as he felt his face was pressed to Makoto's chest. Makoto, at some point, had stood up and make a beeline for Minato to hug him. Glancing up, Minato observed his twin's expression carefully, a faint smirk on his face to the gaping Obito on the chair across from them. Makoto has sensed his distress and acted on it. Minato is a bit embarrassed, even at this age he still craved Makoto's attention. You know what? Minato wants to be a child too. Just this once. That's okay, right? He's the younger between the two, after all, even by 5 minutes. He curled his hands around his twin's waist, hugging back and pressing his face to his twin's chest, comfortably snuggling to his older twin. Minato felt and see his twin pulling his shoulder to hug closer with one hand, while his other hand went to pat his head. Minato promptly hides his smile on his twin's shirt. See? Makoto said, and Minato could feel the laugh rumbling in his chest. Minato is the best brother among you two, he's handsome, polite, awesome, listens to me and hug me very well, and Uchiha Obito is crying. He's sobbing. Minato and Makoto had then sent their ceiling study plan out of the window and spent their afternoon trying to cheer Obito up with ice cream and chocolates and convince the kid that yes, he's loved by them, very much so, and they won't throw Obito away. Minato elbowed his twin when he said maybe would never leave Obito alone. That he's always welcomed in the Namikaze, no matter what. That incident alone spoke a lot about Obito, his insecurities, possible non-existent relationships to his parents and his clans, and Minato feels ashamed he ever get jealous of the kid. His twin knew that of course, and Makoto ruffled his hair as Minato huffed. I'll always be with you, he seemed to say, don't worry, I'm here. Again, Minato loved his twin a lot. His Jounin test went on smoothly. Tsukumo-san, despite his exhaustion clear on his figure, is really a great shinobi, and Minato found himself throwing everything he has to gain a hit on the haddock. Minato grew more fascinated with his white fang kenjutsu style, although it did push him away to his limits. Minato was no slouch, he was fast, even faster than Jiraiya if he pushed hard enough, the Sannin himself admitted. But Tsukumo was even faster with his signature white blade. Sparks would fly, ninja wires was cut and projectiles defected. Minato was able to land a hit only because he trapped the haddock in a very carefully timed stun explosion seals, and even then it was barely a scratch on Tsukumo. Their battle was ordered to stop when half of the clearing was cut to clean pieces by Minato's control of wind element and another half jarred by Tsukumo's control of lightning through his white fang. Singed as he was, Minato had to admit, his lighting wolf blade just was very cool. Minato told him as much, and Tsukumo merely chuckled in thanks. Makoto-chan didn't tell me how you both are practically mirror images. Haddock-san said, sheathing his blade as they walked back to Hokage Tower for Minato's academic part of exam. Minato blinked to that chan suffix, but replied, Makoto rarely spoke about that. He, has a habit of boasting about me than himself to the world. It was embarrassing to admit that, but Haddock-san thankfully only nodded in agreement. Makoto would not shut up about you once we asked. He told us pretty much everything about you. Fueled more by his embarrassment, he stopped in front of the Hokage tower, turned to look at his twin sensei, and bowed down to hide his face more than apologizing. I'm so sorry. For my brother's antics, went unsaid. Haddock-san outright laughed at that, his line of exhaustion temporarily disappeared by the laugh. It's fine, it's fine. I can see where he's coming from. What have you done, Makoto? Thank you, Haddock-san. He bowed down again to the compliment, and Haddock-san took it as an opportunity to ruffle his hair, to Minato's surprise. Force of habit. You both really look the same. Tsukumo sheepishly pulled back, rubbing the back of his neck. Just call me Tsukumo, Minato-kun. Now go out there and get your well-deserved vest. Minato smiled. Thank you sir. Just Tsukumo. The man insisted, I'll see you soon, Minato-kun. The white-haired man wrote a short report which he quickly filed in and walked to where Minato assumed the hospital is. Makoto has been running himself ragged too this whole week between his part-time jobs, Obito, and now Haddock, back and forth to the hospital and his training. But Minato hasn't mentioned it to his twin because he knew Makoto would keep going until he literally fell on his feet. By that time, Minato will savoir his time chewing his twin out. His academic part of test was also finished smoothly, with Jiraiya reviewing his paper right after along with Tsukumo's report. By afternoon, he went home with his Jounin vest and a new rank in hand. Shortly after, Makoto came home with a cake, to Minato's embarrassment, bringing Obito and Kushina along. Minato realized what an unholy combination it is to let Obito and Kushina in the same room 5 minutes before the cake war started. He was fine hiding under the table before his treacherous twin pulled him out, scowling with frosting and chocolates all over his shirt and hair, and with a look, they both managed to wring Kushina and Obito to submission. The resulting cleanup was hell, but at least Obito was already asleep after he took a bath, and the three of them make a quick work of cleaning. Stop poking me with your mop. Makoto, not even looking up from mopping his part of the dinner room, replied, maybe you shouldn't stand there then. Oh, Kushina put her mop up like a defensive staff. You wanna go? Please, Makoto snorted, like you can ever win. Before they could jump at each other and broke their mops, Minato steered Kushina by her shoulder to mop their living room instead, for a little part of their cake war has gone there. But Minato. Kushina protested, glancing back just in time to see Makoto stuck his tongue out. Minato was too late to gently push her face back front before she could yell. I know, Kushina. But you have dinner with Makoto tonight, don't you? It's already 6. His distraction worked as Kushina worked to furiously mop frosting and chocolates off the floor, ignoring Makoto on the dinner room. Let him rectify that, it wasn't a quirk work, but a nice work of cleaning still. Yes, Minato heard Makoto said in his exasperated tone, all of these seals can be used if I have something like Uzumaki chakra reserve in the first place. Tomato, he heard then see Makoto shuffling scrolls and showing a seal to the obviously scowling Kushina. See this one, this character. The bind on second layer and purity with flow and rain are all compatible for chakra absorption and usage, while the ocean in the middle will store it with a smaller voice, and this seal is amazing, and then with his normal volume, but the seal, needed a constant supply of chakra from inside because it fills in, a sound of fingers tapping. This is something of a give and take. The chakra needed to keep the binds going on all layers are high enough, and on top of that it took more for storage. You can change the character with tree reduce the binds on third layer, too. Said Kushina, confusion but mostly upset coloring her tone, isn't it? It would change the stability a bit, but it could still work in a limited amount. You want me to explode? Makoto asked, obviously annoyed. Tree would limit the chakra feed sure, but it would also clash with the ocean. Don't give me that look. You know this seal works by regulating around this ocean as a core, we can't change this one. And the binds are there for Tenketsu and stabilizer. It's the same of making a seal from scratch if we change any of this. Shuffling of scrolls, well then try this one. This is how did Mito-sama let you take a Biju sealing seal? It's a Biju sealing array. Kushina almost shrieked, and Minato decided then he gave up on inspecting his twin's new seal stash. Minato was amazed that Makoto could make a chakra conducting transfer seal on steel. To have chakra transferring metal was almost unnecessary by this point with his seal. And then his henge, who was obviously a seal, it's actually a low-key genjutsu and normal transformation combined. A lot of other seals like a shock seal, layered leveled storage seals, even cleaning seals, modifications of tracking and stealth seals, and a few other elemental seals, was stashed in his chakra paper box. And Makoto created all of those without any mentors. His twin is really amazing. And if he inspected them carefully, all of them could work on very little amount of chakra feed. What Minato noted with Uzumaki seals are they don't really count on chakra feed. Seals doesn't need precise chakra control, not even the complicated layered ones. Once chakra was in its system, the characters would work on their own, it just won't activate if the chakra was too little, and it's rarely found among ninjas. But Makoto's modification made it so it would work in a drip of chakra, then a half glass of water, so to say. His twin is seriously amazing. Wait, it isn't, Makoto muttered to himself, blue eyes trailing the seal in his hands with a frown, as Minato peeks behind his twin to see at the sealing array and thinks, huh, that seal really is to seal something big and something made of chakra. It's a human bomb seal. Minato said, surprised himself. Kushina slapped Makoto's thigh and he yelped, scowling to the redhead who scowled back. Mito Bachan would have killed me from her gravitabane. I'm not that disrespectful. Whatever. Makoto said, it's not like a Bijuu sealing array would be useful now. Curiously, it would be useful later. What is Makoto thinking? It's way above your level anyways, Brokum, way above. The three of them continued breaking down Kushina's borrowed seals on Chakra Reserve, and each one Makoto refused them. Of course the variations of human bomb ones are rejected. The elemental chakra restoration seals Makoto kept in case of emergency, and other seals for a developing second Chakra Reserve was rejected because they are all complicated and so incredibly Uzumaki for it to be used. Laying down beside his twin, with scrolls littered around them, he's thinking of maybe dragging Jiraiya-sensei in their little sealing get-together. Jiraiya-sensei obviously know a lot, maybe even more proficient than Kushina. The Uzumaki who sat down with scrolls opened around her and a paper in her lap, trying to make a combination of the three seals in front of her. Every 30 seconds or a minute, she would scowl and rip her paper to draw on a new one. Speaking of Jiraiya-sensei, Tsunade-sama. Minato said, abruptly sitting up. Makoto did not stir, a scroll still covering his face. But his finger did twitch. Minato nudged his twin's knee with his own knee, she has a second chakra reserve, remember? Strength of 100. His twin pulled the scroll off his face to show his scowl, and I have to be a medic for that. I must become her apprentice. Even if he said that with disdain, Minato could see that calculating glint again in his eyes. He's considering it, has been for a while, it seems. Makoto raised an eyebrow to Minato, asking, you think it's a good idea? Minato shrugged. It's all down to what Makoto wanted, eventually. Personally, it would be a good idea for Minato, but Makoto's temper was not suited for medic works, even though his superb chakra control suits him to be medic. Minato knew simply from his homemade seals, Makoto's chakra control is something to behold. But he's currently under Haddock Tsukumo, the White Fang himself as an apprentice. And Minato knew from Jiraiya that apprenticeship is a big deal. There are legal papers for that, because Konoha, like other villages, values their shinobi and their jutsus. Once the mentor passed, the apprentice will have the mentor's belongings, weapons, and in some case, even inherited their family wealth and political position too. Konoha would ensure that the skills and power of the mentor shinobi would be passed down and be used for the good of the village. It left Minato stunned the first time Jiraiya-sensei explained to him. Go for it. Minato said, a grin on his face. He would love to see the fallout of that, Tsukumo and Tsunade's clash, on Makoto's face when they're older. Makoto gasped. You? Trying to make me stir up problem? Is this the end of the world? Who are you and what have you done to my innocent, handsome, beloved younger twin? The older twin sat up only to lunge at Minato and hugs his waist, wailing dramatically. Minato rolled his eyes and pats his twin's shoulder. I'm sorry, a pervert corrupted your younger brother. I should have known. Makoto wailed harder, resting his head on Minato's lap. I would castrate that bastard and defend my awesome and great and amazing twin's honor the next time I see his stupid porcupine hair. You're ridiculous. You love me. Do I? Makoto mock pouted, you do. Editabane. The twins turned their heads at the same time to Kushina pumping her hand in the air in victory. The Uzumaki grinned, turning her attention to them as she presented a design of a sealing array. Makoto, still laying down on Minato's lap, took it and began inspecting it. Minato also inspecting it. It's something like a bastardized Senjutsu combined with secondary reserve seal. It's actually amazing for Kushina to combine elements of nature chakra seals with chakra reserve seal and adding a stabilizer on top of that. Makoto, Minato looked down, looks pensive. He looks at the sealing array again and again, and Minato can practically see Kushina almost buzzing in excitement, waiting for a reaction. To Minato and Kushina's yelps, Makoto abruptly stood up. He's using his pinched expression, the one where he's trying to figure what to eat with a lot of his favorite foods in front of him, Minato thinks. Yeah, it could work. Makoto calmly said, handing the paper back to Kushina, who whooped in joy, I'll be going ahead, I have to go to hospital. What? Kushina whined, you're just leaving, Brokum, how dare you. Makoto ignored Kushina and her indignant yellings, still drowning in his mind, and stepped out of their house. Guess he really needs that walk to clear his head. Hearing Kushina complains about his brother's rudeness and ungratefulness, and then just generally insulting his existence, Minato chuckled. Thank you Kushina. A sigh, and Kushina continued complaining while she helped Minato tidying up their room. "He's so lucky to have you, Minato. Seriously. He's just so rude and all, not even a thanks for me, damn idiot Dumbus broke him. How are you both twins?" "We were talking about Tsunade-sama and her yin seal," Minato revealed. At Kushina's interested look he continued, "I think your seal made him realize something about it." Huh, Kushina blinked, then folded her hands in front of her chest, and a half-hearted, cute pout was on her face. "He should have said that clearly, if my amazing seal inspired him so. Useless, broke him." Minato chuckled, and fortunately Kushina accepted his offer to lunch together, as thanks for her hard works on helping Makoto. "I just don't want to see him all mopey and whiny tebbing. He's uglier that way." "Yes, yes. And as a thanks in behalf of Makoto." Minato's Jounin duties mostly focused in Jounin Station. As he's new, his tasks are usually organizing and reviewing reports, familiarizing himself with administration and paperworks. Minato doesn't mind much about it. In fact, in these times of war preparation, a lot of people are needed in administration station. After all, one wrong paper, one wrong mission, and Konoha could trigger a war. Not like everyone hasn't been waiting for a war to happen, but still, the one who starts are the one who pays compensation in the end. He was in the middle of sorting interrogation papers of newly discovered Iowa spy within Konoha that something caught his interest. Said Iowa spy had admitted he came here with experimental poison, which he had spread randomly as he walked around Konoha streets. The file was then connected to medical reports written by Tsunade Senju herself, detailing no less than 10 people fell sick within last week and a few passed away within this week. Tsunade detailed it as a new poison which could hide itself well within the body. Minato hadn't really understand, but what he understands is that no antidote has been made, only medications to slow it down. Something like dread filled in his stomach, but Minato continued reading to the victims' files, one by one, civilians and shinobi alike. How, after 1 week of stomachache and weakness symptoms, one by one, all of them simply died of respiratory failures in their sleep. How it was impossible to acquire an antidote as the poison itself was from a very endemic plant only found in Iowa. Hadakarasawa. Minato stopped. He steeled himself then, formed a cage bunshin, and began pushing his 8 hours work in a few hours. I had to go. Something in his brain told him to hurry and go to the hospital, that Makoto needed him. He felt dread and fear, but he doesn't know why it was all Makoto, Minato realized effortlessly, remembering their mother's words. It was all Makoto with this pure fear and dread, and he had to hurry. His work done, he pushed himself out in Shunshin until he arrived at the hospital. He ignored calls of doctors and nurses following where his fear led him. Minato didn't even think, he just walked, hurriedly, kept himself from running because this is hospital. Minato opened a door slowly, didn't even register the number of room, he stepped inside. Haddock Tsukumo was holding his wife's hand, sitting down beside her bed and head bent down in defeat. Haddock Arasawa's eyes are closed, a weak smile on her face, and trails of tears trailing down her eyes to the pillow. Little Kakashi was then pulled to a hug by a shaking Tsukumo, hidden by his view. And his twin Makoto. His older twin was stood frozen, beside Tsukumo. It wasn't an expression he had seen on his twin before. He looked stricken, shocked, wide blue eyes looking at the bedridden woman as his hands trembled. But atop of that, he looked scared. He was frightened. Minato wanted to ask what happened, what caused his fear and dread so much so that even Minato can feel it, let Minato know so he could destroy it immediately. But like all other things about Makoto, all the things he didn't explain, Minato simply accepted it and he pulled Makoto to a comforting hug. Makoto's stiff shoulder sags in his hug, he buried his face on Minato's shoulders and lets out a shaky breath. Minato could feel his shoulder was wet with his tears and his shoulders tremble in his silent sobs, but he could hardly care. Makoto was inconsolable with words right now and Minato worked to calm his twin as much as he can. Something changed in Makoto the day Hadakarasawa was buried. Makoto hadn't cried, a silent support for Tsukumo and Kakashi, and Minato was Makoto's. Minato hadn't known what caused it something, he doesn't even know what that something is. It's usual that he doesn't understand a lot of things about Makoto, Minato had accepted it, but it still brings the taste of paper in his mouth. Minato looked at Makoto, at how he looked at the closed casket for the last time before it was lowered. A glint of melancholy, sadness, guilt and then determination, all of it was mixed in his older twin's minute twitch of expressions. And Minato doesn't know why, or how, or what is it his twin wanted to achieve. It seems like he doesn't know anything about his twin. Minato quickly put it at the back of his mind, however. There's no need to think about that in this kind of time. In the evening, Makoto dragged Tsukumo, Kakashi, Kushina, and Obito for a sleepover. Kushina and Obito's exuberant nature had helped lightening up the atmosphere, even for a bit. Minato worked for dinner as he let Makoto fuss over a sheepish, exhausted Tsukumo and an annoyed little Kakashi. Obito and Kakashi had looked at each other, held a staring match for almost 1 minute before both of them broke away. Obito with disgruntled mutters which Minato had heard containing back Kakashi, and Kakashi had huffed and opted to stay with his father, as far away from Obito. After dinner, the twins had moved all available futons in the living room and all of them had make a kit of dogpile together. Kushina was hugging Obito like a plushie, the kid huffing and complaining, and his complaints only got louder when Kakashi, on the other side of their joint beds, snapped to shut up. Kushina cackled as he restrained Obito from physically go to Kakashi by tickling him. Tsukumo went to tease Kakashi on making a new friend and didn't tell him, and the TV was left for an ambient noise. Kushina and Obito's laughter slowly morphed to soft breaths. Kakashi and Tsukumo was quiet and asleep. In the middle of Kushina and Obito on the right and Tsukumo with Kakashi on the left, Minato had rolled to face his twin beside him and smiled. This is a reminiscent of their childhood. Makoto replied his smile, even when it wasn't as bright as usual. Been a long time since we sleep together, his older twin mouthed without voice, dragging himself closer to Minato until their shoulders brush with each other. Minato grinned, we always do this when we were 5. Commemorative 10 years, Makoto mouthed, pulling the blanket to cover both of them, and pats Minato from the blanket, good night Minato. Snuggling to his pillow, Minato nodded. Good night Makoto. Subconsciously, he matched his breathing with Makoto, and they both relaxed together to a dreamless land of sleep. Kakashi woke up with the image of his mother on hospital bed, her skin flaking to paper, her tears turning to blood, and her voice had repeated again and again in his mind, melodious I'm sorry. Kakashi of her voice turned discordant and static each time she repeated it. With effort, he wriggled out of his father's hug and sat up, inspecting the room. That's right. Makoto, his father's apprentice, has invited a sleepover in his house. At first, Kakashi hadn't even looked at Makoto. He hadn't understand why his father would accept a civilian as his apprentice. Kakashi thinks Makoto Namikaze is a dumbass. It's obvious he doesn't have any capabilities of being a ninja, yet he worked to the ground for it, and no matter how his father had knocked him with cheap tricks that no genin would fall for, he tried again and again. Kakashi doesn't see what is it his father see in Makoto that he's willing to train the civilian, even requesting a seal from Jiraiya around their house. Not for a first time, Kakashi wanted to tell the teenager off. Just stop. What he's doing is useless anyways, there's no use to be a ninja if they're already born civilian, there's no future in this path for him. And maybe that's why his parents had put that seal to hide him off, they knew how sharp his mouth is. Kakashi thinks they're exaggerating, he's just stating truth after all. Then his father had told him to see, and Kakashi did, he tried to, at least. Makoto failed repeatedly, time and time again he fell due to stupid things traps that he should be able to see, attacks which would be easily dodged, but Kakashi hadn't been able to stop looking. The teenager would snarl, his hair hinge would fade from black to yellow, his ankle had twisted, hands bruised black and blue, and he would still continue. There's an improvement, so little improvement, his blue eyes recognizing traps after getting hit for 5 times by the same trap, how he learned not to dodge, but parry at certain attacks, but it's there. For Kakashi, he's improving slowly, but father had said he improved remarkably quickly for a civilian. Kakashi wouldn't admit it, but he had cheered for the teenager quietly. He would stand in front of Makoto from time to see if he would overcome his seal, disappointed when Makoto simply goes around him, still in the seal's will. But he hadn't stopped looking at his training, hadn't stopped waited, and Makoto-san is amazing, he reluctantly admit. His prowess on Fuinjutsu is not something to laugh or underestimate, and it's amazing he's able to be so proficient with his limited chakra, because even Kakashi knew Fuinjutsu, originated of Uzumaki, needed a lot of chakra to function. Jiraiya the Sannin had said so in his talk with his father. Speaking of his father's apprentice, Kakashi glanced to the middle futons, seeing only one blonde-haired teenager sleeping. Kakashi doesn't know if it was Makoto-san or Minato-san who sat down on the porch facing the back garden, but he couldn't sleep anyway, so he made his way quietly to sit beside the teenager. It's easy to forget with the noise earlier, Kakashi thinks. His father has been busy and exhausted with funeral preparations, but he had smiled to Kushina-san's and Obito's, why is he here? Antics earlier. His father didn't look so sad anymore, even laughed at Makoto-san's fussing, and Minato-san's amazed yet concerned look on how Kushina-san and Obito fainted after eating a scoop of ice cream in one go. But here, alone with the sound of crickets, he couldn't forget the sight of his crying, trembling father. The slow descent of his mother's hand falling down from his father's, tears flowing down her eyes, and Kakashi could smell her death amidst the salt of tears. Hugging his knees to his chest, Kakashi shuddered. He had promised himself. He had promised himself he wouldn't cry. His father is busy and exhausted, he was sad, and Kakashi is determined to not break until his father is better. The blanket was draped over his shoulders, and Kakashi was sure it was Makoto-san who pulled him in with one hand. I lost my parents when I was 6, Makoto-san began, voice barely a whisper, but clear and calm. I had forgotten a lot about them. I remembered my mother's smile and words, sometimes. A pause, I began to remember though, with auntie. Your mother. Kakashi glanced up and Makoto-san smiled down, she's like a second mother for me. She cares for me, fuss over me, teach me things. The teenager took a deep, shaky breath, their last words are even the same. She was crying too. Unbidden, the image of her mother crying quietly with a smile appeared in his mind and Kakashi gripped his hands harder. Kakashi, I love you. She said. Makoto-san's hand reached to his shoulder and began stroking his hand slowly with his trembling hand. Something his mother used to do and Kakashi trembled. It's okay, Kakashi, Makoto-san said, it's painful, isn't it, remembering her? But there are also good things about them. You know, like her smile, her laugh, her words. It's okay. It will be okay. He promised himself he wouldn't break. For his father. But maybe it's okay to break now. Maybe it's okay to cry now because Makoto-san had understand. Kakashi hadn't wanted to remember her being so weak, so pale. Hadn't wanted to remember her as a weeping ghost, a pale mannequin in a casket, and so he had ignored it, numb, even at her funeral, distracting himself, refusing to acknowledge his mother. But he couldn't in the end. His mother has a very nice smile, Kakashi remembered. She laughed when Kakashi was tripped on laundry sheet, she hummed a lullaby when she cooked, she yelled when father forgot to fix their door because of Makoto's pranks, she would comb her hair on the porch and knit something, while Kakashi lay down on her lap and she is not here anymore. Kakashi cried. He cried a lot, but Makoto-san had not commented, resting his chin on Kakashi's head as he pulled Kakashi closer, hugging him with both hands. Kakashi cried, and then he remembered no more. 16 years old. All in all, it was fairly a quiet day. As quiet as a village in a war preparation, that is. As time passes and tension rose between Iwa and Konoha, the rumor mills working overtime to deliver gossips about destroyed posts and captured spies. By now, peace was something of a pretty make-up. Which means, it's a calm before the storm. In Jounin Ninja Station, everything and everyone is just a hairbreadth away from arming themselves and set in defensive position, so to speak. The only thing keeping them from doing said thing was it is extremely busy. Paperworks flew from one division to another, constructions was ordered and pressed to be finished, weapons and gears was demanded in triples. As Minato read stacks and stacks of paperworks and organized them for those in need to each their divisions and requests, it was understandable that he didn't realize the noise coming from the front for a time. What pulled his attention was actually the sound of something crashing, other things probably a blunt object to a building, but the resulting boom and the tremble of the walls indicated something big. Like a paper bomb. Instantly, Minato armed himself. Has the war started then? Has Iwa become so daring they attacked Konoha? Pushing himself to shunch into the road, Minato readied his kunai. He stood on the road, ready, as several other Jounins who came out of the station with their weapons ready. As the road settles from dust, what greeted him was not Iwa ninjas. Or an invasion. It was instead the back of a woman with blonde, low twin tails. The back of a very pissed off Tsunade Senju. From the crater on the road and the missing wall of Jounin Station, it was obvious enough that she was the one who blew the wall off. Probably from one of her clenched fists. Minato Nai. Minato's reflex fortunately managed to make himself drop his kunai down before he could harm Obito, who launched himself to Minato's torso and clings like a koala. Minato doesn't even have time to ask why is Obito here or what happened before the Uchiha yelled in obvious panic, Makoto Nai's going to die. What? The blonde managed, weakly, as Obito's obvious fear made him clung to Minato so tightly it was a bit difficult to breathe. Obito merely tightened his grip, whimpering a bit. That's alarming. His attention was then pulled down, where he felt his trouser was tugged repeatedly, insistently. Minato's blue eyes locked with Kakashi's gray eyes. Any other time he would be alarmed by how pale Kakashi's face is, almost resembling his own hair. Even be more alarmed by Kakashi's almost murmured, "Stop him." But this time, Minato followed where Kakashi's fearful gaze turned ahead to see Makoto. Makoto who stood in a distance in front of Tsunade, blood trailed down his forehead, caking his black fringe on his left face. His feet are open in a defensive kata, clutching a white chikudo in reverse grip in his right hand. Wait, that blade is that white fang. Makoto is fighting Tsunade Senju. Makoto, his civilian twin brother, is fighting Tsunade Senju. Minato felt blood drains from his face, his fingers involuntarily going cold. Just what the hell is his twin thinking? How did he even manage to piss off the Senju princess? You gonna pay for that, Bachan? Everything is quiet. Minato knew every bystanders and Jounins around are sharing his bafflement of whoever is it ninja who fought a very pissed off Sannin. In lieu of answering, Tsunade shot forward and Minato swore he experienced 10 heart attacks in the last 5 seconds as Makoto weaved around her fists by his steps and actually managed to land a kick on her back, making it a springboard as he jumped to the roof. In the split second of Makoto airborne, he locked eyes with Minato, and instantly Minato understood his twin by his eyes alone. "I don't know what I'm doing, I'm going to die, prepare my funeral, but also, wish me luck," accompanied by a wink on his pale face. Tsunade snarled and jumped, no doubt following his twin. Quietly, Minato despairs. Reminded, once again, that his twin was absolutely exhausting when he pulled his stunts, just like that time he jumped to another roof for the first time, or that time he dangled from a rope, or Kakashi's tugs on his pants grew more insistent and Obito just hides in his shoulder. Right. He had a brother to save. Against a Sannin. What the fuck, Makoto? Scooping Kakashi in his hands and shifting Obito's position on his torso, Minato didn't even bother to say hold tight to his brats as he jumped, following the trail of destroyed shops and craters on roads. They arrived at Training Ground 7. By the time Minato sets Kakashi and Obito down, there's already an audience. At least 5 shinobis present, in which Jiraiya-sensei and Tsukumo-san stood, watching. Minato didn't register anything more than that, focusing himself to the battle at hand. And what Minato assumed was White Fang, the blade almost shone as Makoto weaved unoffensive, and Tsunade easily evaded his blows. Squinting, however, Minato could see there's a crackle of faint electricity on said blade. Makoto is in a bad place, though. His breath was labored, and he began grazing Tsunade's hits rather than split-second clean evasion he performed earlier. On the other hand, Tsunade looked no worse from where than small cuts along her face, feet, and her hands. Her frown never creased even once. They are talking there, but Minato can hardly heard it from his distance. Jiraiya-sensei and Tsukumo seems like they heard it though, by Tsukumo-san's shocked look and Jiraiya-sensei's contemplative frown. Teach me then. If you're so determined to leave, make me your protege first duck from a kick, teach me for 5 years, and you can leave to God knows where land a graze, hand down, twist from a fist, an annoyed snarl, betraying how many other promises. Do you think an arrogant brat like you deserve my tutelage? Do you think Nawaki deserves a coward sister like you? What the fuck do you know about him? The flick of his blade. Enough to know that Nawaki will be disappointed of you. Dislocated ribs, but at least he could evade that fist, and the ground broke to pieces behind him. Makoto grazed Tsunade's fist as he ducked to her left and landed a long yet superficial cut along on her hand as she jumped away. Setting her foot down, Tsunade spun and shot with another foot. Makoto jumped over it, but it clearly still grazed him and his somersault was backhanded by her fist. It was hit head-on, and even by covering his body with his hands, Makoto still flew away and crashed after breaking a tree. Obito hugged Minato's foot and hides his sobs pants. Kakashi merely looked more sickly than before. Minato refused to look at his downed twin and instead looked at Tsunade. She looks more pissed, yes, and her hand injury was dripping blood, as is her other injuries. But from said long cut, ink mark appeared, forming words and symbols. On her skin, a seal spreads to cover the entirety of her hands and reaching her shoulders, crackling with blue electricity. The lighting base seal, Minato realized with faint astonishment. Makoto's goal was never to defeat the Sannin, it was always a race to put that seal, to give him a chance. A seal which, transferred from his blade, able to make the victim paralyzed for a time, judging from Tsunade's trembles and twitches. The Sannin looks enraged because she couldn't move. Minato looked at Tsukumo-san to see a smile on the Haddock's face. Beside him, Jiraiya-sensei actually whistled. Continuing to look at the same path, Minato's heart stuttered as he saw his twin stood and wobbled forward, blood flowing from his bloodied head to his chin, dropping to the ground. He would make an excellent ghost who jumped out of a ghost house, a part of Minato thinks, accompanied with dread. Makoto is wincing in pain, his left hand was bloodied and limp on his side, but his right hand stubbornly clutching his blade, faintly pressing his chest. He's struggling to breath, Minato realized. Visibly stuttering, even from this distance. Maybe trying to keep his ribs from further injury. The clearing was silent as Makoto's wobbling steps grew to a fluid walk. Minato could see the minute Makoto swallowed all his pain as he straightened his back, gritting his teeth. His slow walk gained surety until it became a run, and Makoto tackled the Sannin to the ground, stabbing his Shakudo down not in a death blow, but to graze her hand and intensify the seal and left it standing on the ground. He pulled his right fist back with a bloodied scowl on his face and punched down. A small crater formed around Makoto's fist, spreading out on the ground in spiderweb cracks, right beside Tsunade's head. The battle has ended. 3 years. His breathing was stuttering short and painful. It sounds wet, his voice hoarse. His airway was obviously obstructed, maybe punctured lung, and his ribs was obviously cracked if not broken. His left hand was a gore sight, mushed, red and starting to swell, bones broken on several parts. Tsunade pushed away those ingrained analysis from her head to scowl harder, trying to move her fists. The seal is fading, and once she regained her strength she swore she will kill this brat to splatter. 3 years. The brat repeated, replying her glare with his own glare head on, blood dripping from his chin to her cloth, don't even admit me as a protege. Just teach me how to heal. Teach me to save lives. Like you, I have my precious people. I have a little brother. Like you, he is my entire world. Unlike you, he spat, blood coloring his teeth, and she snarled in rage as he said, I am not a coward who would betray a promise to my precious people. He pulled away to cough out, wet and painful. The next time he took a breath, a faint whistle sounded from his chest. By all means, this brat would have collapsed or dead now, and yet here he is, glaring at Tsunade, blood flowing down his lips. Defiant, as he wiped his mouth with his trembling functional hand. Tsunade can't help it, she grinned. It was not a nice grin at all. Because she knew that determined look. Recognized it as her own look the day her grandfather died, the day she vowed to be able to heal and save as many as she could. The pure protectiveness in his eyes, the defiant way he glared at her. She gave everything she could for this village, her talents, her skills, her life, her precious people. Her love, Dan gave his life, as is her brother. Twice, her heart was broken to pieces, no one to mend it or help her but her own. Twice, she put her faith to this rotten village who would never listen to her. And this time, she isn't sure she could mend it again for the third time. This damned village took everything from her grasp. And it never, not even once, gave something back to her. This village is cursed and no amount of effort, skill or miracle could cure it. And this brat will suffer. This brat will throw himself down to make a difference, to become strong, to hone his skills. Tsunade will give it to him, she will watch him struggle half-death, and she would watch as he broke in front of her. She would watch as he wailed over his precious people, just like she had. She would prove to this brat that Konoha offers nothing but curses, death and despair. He would succumb to one just as she had, and she would enjoy herself as he fell to despair. When he finally decided to leave this accursed village, she would laugh at his face. This she swore in her mind. Pushing her sneer and smile down, she returned her scowl. Konoha Hospital. Monday. 7 hours sharp. As the brat's surprised look turned to a smirk, Tsunade closed her eyes. Nawaki, she thinks. Is this what you want? She took a sharp breath, trying to shoo away the tears pooling in her eyes, ignoring a comparison of Nawaki and the civilian brat in his mind, his look of determination, his drive, the way his eyes flits around to look for an opening, focusing on how the brat is moved away from her body. Are you preventing me from leaving? This is last chance. She clenched her fists, digging them to her skin painfully. I'm sorry to break our promise, but I can't put Shizune to risk. I'm sure you would understand. Her throat was tight, bile rise up in her stomach, but she crushed her sadness and anxiety down, wouldn't you? I will give a shot to this last chance. Her emerald eyes opened, observed how the seal on her hand was broken as he picked his shakudo with deathly pale trembling hands. Last chance, and I will leave after this. Makoto stood up but didn't manage to move a step before he wobbled and fell. Minato is there, trying to calm his own breathing down as he hugged his twin and prepared himself to run to hospital. Ignoring Obito's cry and Kakashi's faint whimper, Minato tightening his hold to his dying brother and leapt, as fast as his feet and chakra can bring him, to general direction of Konoha Hospital. Makoto is not going to die. He isn't. He will be alive. He is alive. He had to be alive. Let me bring his clothes. Idiot, you're too small to take that bag. What did you say, Kakashi? I said you are weak and short. Leave it, useless. Minato came in time to catch the collar of Obito, who jumped to punch Kakashi. Obito yelped and trashed, but Minato offered a bag of bento to the kid and chided, don't let it fall, Obito. Focus. The doctor said Makoto will probably wake up today, and he would need food. Thanks Sage for oblivious Obito as he quickly grabs the small bag and stared at it seriously, he didn't notice Kakashi's smirk. Minato gave Kakashi a look, which indicated he knew exactly what the kid is doing, and Kakashi huffed and looked away. They normally get along and click well where it really counts, like when they both apparently run together to get Minato the other day. But most of the time they fought on every little things, simply because Obito is loud and mildly annoying, while Kakashi is quiet and too blunt. It doesn't help that Obito is amusing to piss off, too. Picking up the bag of clothes, he offered each of his hands to his, Makoto's, brats, and Kakashi settled on his right side while Obito on his left. Once they reached Makoto's hospital room, Minato offered a book on sealing to Kakashi and a paper with a pen to Obito. A trick Makoto and Minato have learned to break out Obito and Kakashi's fight is to simply assign them on something different and don't make them look at each other. Kakashi was content on reading book about sealing and asking what he doesn't know, and Obito was content on learning seal characters